Like a hellish, screeching whip crack of sonic malevolence, shredding apart whatever's left of melodic decency. We are 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio. Coming to you live tonight from the Bolter Brain.
The Warmongers, Gobbo, got to feel pretty good about coming off of their third Zerker win in the Murder Ball preseason. Absolutely destroying the Recaf Reapers in last night's game. Brawler Zane, Iron Gut, leaving another tally on the kill leaderboard. In other news, the fucking heat exchangers are all out across the Underhive.
But it's so pretty when it snows in the sump.
Nice glowy green color.
This heat ain't exchanging shit.
Skaven snow. Barely controlling the runaway train of treacherous toe takers, I am your captain, Goblin King. Joined by my co-host, the marvelously misguided mauler, Marky. And back from climes unknown, somewhere deep in the Amityville Hive, it's Beast.
I came back from a very, very dark place.
We gotta know, other than being way the fuck over there, how bad is the food?
Butthole.
I don't know where that is in the toilet scale.
It depends. Sometimes you like eating ass, sometimes you don't.
Amityville Hive food. Sometimes you like eating ass, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes that ass is Michelin star, sometimes it's a dude named Mitchell.
Surprise, motherfucker.
This is episode 74 of Under the Hive of Madness, The Emperor and His Primarchs Part 2, continuing with our coverage of the events of 30k. As we march towards getting into the big Imperial factions, we're turning over and exploring a lot of the more early Imperial history in order to establish a good foundation for what we're going to be talking about. Much like with our last episode, this is your up top spoiler warning. There will have to be more than a handful of spoilers for any listeners who are currently reading either the Horus Heresy or the Siege of Terra series, so consider yourselves warned.
Yeah, I guess this stuff is new, right? It's not necessarily...
the first Horus Heresy books were written 20 years ago, so...
All right, and the ones we're about to talk about are a part of those?
Most of what we'll cover today will mostly be part of the early Horus Heresy stuff, or at least will be lore that can trace back to the early Horus Heresy stuff. But the Erda stuff that we talked about in last episode, that's Siege of Terra. It's just one of those blanket things. If you're reading those, we are going to touch on light spoilers. It's a dusting. We're not going to really reveal anything.
Well, it's kind of like
come across in a YouTube video.
It's kind of like World War II history, right? You're like, spoilers. There's spoilers in this. The Alliance won.
They need a bigger boat. Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
How dare you?
It was like you used to have the monkey dies at the end of King Kong. Sorry,
Luke and Leia are siblings. What?
Wow, that's an even deeper cut. That's the next movie. Man,
I've gone too far.
Next, you're going to tell me that Yoda was puppeted by Frank Oz or some shit.
That's deep.
That was the puppeteer for Yoda.
That was the guy that was holding on to Luke's back when he's doing backflips in the swamp.
That's right.
That's what's up.
You know the perfection meme format? Where
yes.
Yeah, it's Magneto from the newer X-Men. Show me the good Yoda fight, and it's Yoda fighting Count Dooku. And it says, no, the real Yoda fight. And then it's Yoda fighting somebody else. I can't remember who, but Yoda fighting somebody else. And then it's like, no, the real Yoda fight. And it's Yoda smacking the shit out of R2-D2 with its cane. Perfection. I was like, yes. That's pretty good right there.
Probably him fighting Sidious at the council or something
Maybe. I think it was Sidious, then Dooku, then him beating R2 with his cane.
The shit at R2.
You know what I realized I actually saw the other day was that they really do have the fucking aliens from E.T. in that counselor scene.
They're in the council scene. There's a bunch of aliens from old Spielberg and Disney movies in that scene. There's some dude broke it all down.
What the fuck?
It's super crazy. All the little Easter eggs they sprinkle in are super crazy.
I think it was in one of the Marvel Thor, or was it whatever the last Thor movie was, where they show all the different gods.
Love and Thunder.
Oh, Love and Thunder. You're right. Yeah, right. The one with is it Russell Crowe?
Yeah. He plays Zeus.
They show wow, what the fuck is his name? The guy that just came out in the Black Panther movie, the new one. I want to say Oxalotl, but that's the fish.
Neat.
Kukulkan.
Yeah, Kukulkan. Yeah.
I actually really like that they made him.
Yeah. I actually didn't mind him being like a Hispanic dude.
Dude,
it was actually, I wasn't, even though, what the fuck's his normal name? It's not Nomad. What the fuck is it?
Neo or whatever.
No,
it's Nemo, isn't it?
Nemo, yeah.
No,
it's
Nemi?
It's not Nemo? Because
Noemi?
Something with an N.
Noemi?
I swear it's Nemo.
It's not anything.
Because Nemo
like,
means nameless in Latin, and it's the furthest point on the globe from any other human.
I got
it's
it.
the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Give me like two seconds.
2
seconds. I
now
got it.
or never. Now or never.
It is.
It's Nerf or nothing. Come on, Marky. Nerf or fucking nothing.
Namor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his name.
Namor.
Namor.
What was he like?
Namor.
Was he like something different in the comics?
Yeah,
or something?
he looks like fucking. What's his name? He looks like a black-haired Aquaman.
Oh yeah, basically.
Interesting. I like the character in Black Panther.
I just really I did not think I'd like that movie. And then afterwards, I was like, "Damn, that was good."
Yeah, it was pretty good.
The way that they speak with that deep ass voice.
Yeah, it was cool.
Fucking Mayan. I'm like, ooh.
They did good with that movie. I also liked Love and Thunder. I know a bunch of people don't like Love and Thunder, but I liked Love and Thunder. I thought it was pretty neat. I
thought the owl scene was fucking hilarious.
I haven't seen it.
I like the owl scene. I liked when Zeus zapped his clothes off and half the girls in the fucking stadium faint because they see Thor's junk.
Yeah, that was great.
That made me laugh. There's a bunch of stuff that made me laugh in that entire film. You gotta.
No, man, that's misandrist.
There's 2 problems with the Marvel universe in what really grinds my gears segment of today's podcast.
Uh-oh.
The first problem is they're kind of out of runway. They've produced so many films and they've had to up the ante on whatever they're doing so many times that it's really, really hard to give a shit anymore. And the second part is that everyone takes them way too fucking seriously. So when James Gunn or Tiki Waititi makes a joke 'em up, everybody gets offended at the joke 'em up. And it's like, these are literally dumb 10-cent. I mean, I realize a lot of people really like them, and obviously comics are a very nice form of illustration, all that. But at the end of the day, these are dollar stories. You are like, how could you degrade Shakespeare? They're not degrading classic literature. They're degrading a dollar story that was written by 25-year-olds who were given less than a week to write it. And we're like, fuck, I'm out of ideas. Let's read the ingredients on the back of this Coke can. Great, I've got a villain. That's where that's where Marvel and DC original comics came from. We're treating them like this elevated classic literature that you can't touch or fuck with, but they come from a background where all the people who have ever written for them have fucked with them on purpose. So it's
there's no deeper meaning?
I mean, I'm sure there is.
Sorry. There's no deeper meaning to Spider-Man. To Spider-Man meeting Spider-Man. There's no...
And all pointing at each other. Yeah, there was an internet meme, and then they decided to make it part of Into the Spider-Verse. Which, either laugh at it or be like, oh, they're degrading They're not degrading the comic. Comics are fucking... Before the internet existed, comic books were memes. Just let it happen. It doesn't matter that much.
You ask me, just go with fan service and stop going with there's a higher message to it all. Fan service will get you a lot further.
I mean, that's one of the reasons that the beauty of the Guardians of the Galaxy films are they steer into the camp and the silly, and there is a deeper message. But the deeper message isn't some long drawn out line in the sand political message.
It's family.
It's family. That's it. That's as deep as it goes. Yeah, exactly. It's just family.
Dude, there's
why do they call him Thumper?
Good boys, Thumper.
What?
There's a new Fast and Furious coming out.
Yeah, speaking of,
there's Fast and Furious X.
Oh, Fast 10, baby.
And literally, it was he's you can't stop fam. It's in the fucking...
It's literally
it's in the thing, yeah.
You can't stop it.
The other thing that fucking makes me giggle about that is Jason Momoa is the bad guy, and if you watch the trailer, they're like, oh, yeah, remember when he was in the third movie racing against Aaron Paul, or Was that his name? Aaron Paul? That was his name, right?
Paul.
Not Aaron Paul.
Not Paul Rudd.
Aaron Paul is the guy that makes methamphetamines with Walter
I thought his
White.
name was. They're gonna kill us. They're like, you don't know fucking what's his fuck?
The dude who unfortunately died in a car accident, which really, really sucks.
Oh, Paul Rudd?
No. Paul Rudd's Ant-Man.
Oh, no, not Paul Rudd. What am I fucking talking about?
Paul Walker.
Yeah, Paul
Walker. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, remember when Jason Momoa raced Paul Walker in Fast and the Furious 3? And I'm like, I haven't seen that movie in like a long time, but I'm pretty sure this didn't happen.
Remember when Paul Walker asked for that tuna sandwich? There was deeper meaning behind it. What he was really asking for was Vin Diesel's sister's.
No. The real deeper message there, Marky, was that he was trying to call attention to the fact that fucking Subway tuna doesn't actually have any tuna fish in it. That's what that was about.
That's a lie. Is that true?
Yeah, that's 100% true.
What is it?
I can't remember, but it's not tuna fish. They got sued over it. They legitimately got sued over the fact that their tuna salad doesn't actually have tuna in it.
Is chicken of the sea tuna or is it chicken?
Yeah, it's tuna. It's what's supposed to be tuna. Bumblebee tuna? Bumblebee tuna.
Your
balls are showing.
Excuse me.
What is that one? Realistically, I think what we all need to really
left field.
We're way out of left field.
Realistically, where are we going, man?
Hold on, I'm trying to find it here. I really.
Tom's trying to find the deeper meaning between Fast and Furious.
There's a joke that I'm working on, and it's real good, and I need it.
He's like, I need the closer. I
need it to work out because it's going to be real good here. Just bear with me.
He's
Pause.
just like all family.
Yeah, dude. I think what we all. God damn it, load. I think what we all need to really understand. What we all really need to understand is that the best Fast and Furious movie, right, really didn't even focus necessarily on family. If we're talking about the deepest meaning of all the movies, we need to think about.
There you go. Tokyo Drift. Hey, dude, I fucking love Tokyo Drift. Oh my
god, dude, that's a college thesis right there.
Dude, I needed it. It worked out perfectly. Thank you all for playing.
Yeah, I love Tokyo Drift. Just drifting with American Muscle down a fucking parking lot. It was great.
Fucking, what's it called, dude? Little Romeo. Little Romeo.
Before I was in college and before I was looking at like writing stories, and we've talked about this a little bit in past episodes, but before I was focused on writing stories and before I was focused on like producing content, writing screenplays and dissecting movies, I had this huge fascination with just like kung fu movies and like spaghetti westerns and just all of this sort of like trash, in air quotes, trash movie making and trash television. It was exciting. It was interesting. It kept moving. There was always something happening. There was always a piece of action or whatever. And then I got into this like weird, like everything had to be a cerebral, what's the point movie as you like dissect things. And they talk about like different movies that were made in different eras and how they represent
trying to make
stuff.
a spaghetti western be like American Beauty.
Yeah, essentially. Or why is American Beauty such a great film? And I went through that chunk in my, mid 20s to mid 30s. And then in my mid 30s, we watched a Fast and the Furious movie with some friends. They were just like, don't think about it. Don't focus on it. Just come out and have fucking fun and watch this movie with us. And so we did. We went out and watched this movie. And I was like, these are entertaining movies. They're not good, but fuck, they're entertaining. And it was Fast and the Furious that made me realize, stop overanalyzing films.
Did you know
there's a time and a place to analyze films, and it's not watching a new one.
Did you know that the term spaghetti western is actually racist?
I was actually going to ask about that. Why do they call them?
Because it's made by Italian directors.
Really?
Yeah. And they would hire Italian, everything was Italian, and they would do it on a super budget. They would make a Western on a super low budget.
Where the white women at?
Yeah.
That's one of the...
Like,
So the movie Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis is a
love that
play
movie.
on that
Never
because
seen
it's a
You
mafia.
haven't seen Last
Dude,
Man
you have to watch
Standing?
Last Man Standing.
Dude, Christopher Walken is the villain, and
Dude.
it's the fucking best.
I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
Yeah, dude. Christopher Walken's like just walks around with a fucking Tommy gun. He's like, I go fuck your mother, and just blows people away, dude.
Yeah,
It's so good.
What is it called?
Last Man Standing.
Last Man Standing. Okay.
It's
Bruce
one of the-
Willis.
It's one of the first films that really made guns akimbo a thing.
Dude, Bruce Willis, I was literally just like, dude, my favorite scene is Bruce Willis like prepping to take on this like mafia boss, right? Who's Christopher Walken. And he's just loading fucking 30 mags of single stack 45s for his two 1911s.
Yeah.
And he just walks around just blasting fools with these 1911s.
I looked up Last Man Standing, and it shows it as a TV show with Tim Allen.
Yeah, there's some TV show, but there's a movie from back in the day. I mean, it's a either early 2000s or late 1996.
Oh shit!
So it's an older film. It's a spaghetti western, but the reason it's a spaghetti western is because a bunch of mafiosos get exiled to an old west town.
That's fucking cool.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's so good. Like, I remember just like randomly finding it one night on like watching TV, and I was like, "That's Bruce Willis," and I love him. He's like one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
And I started watching it, dude, and I was like, "I love this movie." Like, because he just goes around with these 245s, dude, and he's just like, and it's like one dude. Like he's just like fucking just like every shot is like that. Like any scene you see is just Bruce Willis holding a fucking 45.
Just blasting.
It is an insane movie. It's a very good movie. So that one pulled apart the spaghetti western, and then the other one that pulled apart the spaghetti western is called Samurai Showdown Django, or Samurai Django Showdown or something. And it's a Japanese spaghetti western that's a retelling of the Magnificent, roughly the Magnificent or the Dirty Dozen. It's one of those. It is a fucking crazy wild movie. Samurai Western Django, I think is what it's called. So a little bit of film history. Western movies, like the classic Old West movie, the Dirty Harry style, pick one of the either Clint Eastwood, not Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry is a bad example. But like the Good, the Dead, and the Ugly. Any of those old Clint Eastwood or John Wayne. Any of those old John Wayne or Clint Eastwood movies, a lot of them are actually based on black and white samurai movies. So this movie is a samurai movie based on a Western, based on a samurai movie.
That's sick.
And it takes place in an old West town, and it's fucking weird as shit. Like the villain wears like crazy ass jinkos. It's a fucking crazy movie.
Talk
But
about
anyway.
deeper meaning.
There is no deeper meaning. It's just them being fucking weird. And like that's the thing. Like Taika Waititi,
The
Right?
director?
yeah, the director. Like he did Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok was Taika Waititi. Thank you. He did Ragnarok. Ragnarok's fucking hysterical. He did Love and Thunder. Love and Thunder's got a bunch of hysterical scenes in it. Stop thinking there. Don't analyze like, oh well, why did Loki do this? That doesn't make sense. Loki in the comics never did that. Who gives a shit? It is a string together chunk of meme jokes, and that's okay.
I think people's arguments is that they just went way too far into the funny than they did anything else. Like it's all corny jokes now and not enough actual story, I guess.
The problem is they introduced the world-ending villain, and then they had 3 films that defeated the world-ending villain.
And then add another one.
I'm sorry, not even a world-ending villain. They introduced a villain who is capable of destroying half of everything in the entire known universe. And then they defeated him and undid what he did. So you brought out the toppest thing that you could, fucking Thanos. So,
Galactus, I think, would probably be the...
Yeah. Or the dude that they're actually running with, the dude who like fucks multiple timelines, the Conqueror.
Oh, Kang.
Yeah, Kang.
The Conqueror.
Like, that's literally where they have to go. You can't have, the thing that makes Star Wars, as an example, a good series of films, the original trilogy, a good series of films, is you have Grand Moff Tarkin is the bad guy. And then, okay, well, he's destroyed. He's defeated. Well, who is his boss? Okay, his boss is Darth Vader. Okay, Darth Vader isn't destroyed and defeated, but Darth Vader is definitely taken down a peg. Okay, who's Darth Vader's boss? The Emperor. All right, now we've killed the Emperor. And then, like, what happened? Well, then they did films 1, 2, and 3, which were whatever, however you feel about them, good, bad, or whatever. Right. And then they did 7, 8, 9. What was the problem with 7, 8, 9? Well, 7, 8, 9 fucking did, oh, well, this general's a bad guy. Okay, so Grand Moff again. All right, this general's version of Darth Vader, Kylo Ren is a bad guy. Oh, okay.
And you bring the Emperor back.
And then the Emperor's the bad guy, and that's why those movies fell flat. It's not because a female lead person. It's not because too many dumb characters. It was literally just you guys did the exact same fucking story and you didn't do it well. And that's the same thing that's happening in Marvel. You already defeated Thanos. You can't ratchet up. There is no more Thanos-y than Thanos. So where are you going to take the story? There's no place to take the story.
To circle back on Rey.
Yeah,
she's got some weird looking hands. All right, I'm gonna be real. When they
never
came out with that commercial where like she puts her hand on a rock and like levitates a bunch of rocks, I was like, "Ugh, who the fuck's hands are those? Those are ugly as hell."
Probably
and then it like pans up to her face, and I was like, "Oh god, those are attached to her." No wonder she became an actress, dude, because she ain't gonna be a hand model.
Megan Fox's thumb
hammer thumb.
Oh my god, dude. The thing
when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah. I
mean, I'd still do it, but
I don't know, man. She stick it in your mouth, I'm like, wow. You're like,
hook your cheek to the side so she can
push hook your cheek. That's what. See, it's a little different now, huh?
Why does this taste like cheese?
Oh God, no. It looks like a toe.
I'm still gonna call you mommy, but I don't like it.
Wow, I'm still gonna call you mommy, but I don't like it. That's all right. You'll be in a weird movie called Jennifer's Body that everybody will hate when it comes out, and then love 10 years later for some fucking weird ass reason.
I loved that movie when I saw it.
Like, I don't really care to get super deep into this argument with anybody, but the thing that always kind of weirded me out about it makes more sense that Luke became all powerful overnight than Rey became all powerful overnight. Luke is introduced as a farm boy who lives a protected life. Rey is introduced as a street urchin who fights every day for her food. I have a lot easier time believing that the street urchin who grew up fighting for everything that they needed to would pick up combat skills over a farm boy who spent an hour with a droid who shocked him in the ass a couple of times.
Wrong. And she didn't have Yoda on his back. Or on her back.
No,
slapping him upside
no. She had Luke on her back.
Like that. Look, really what it boils down to. Oh, that was me, my bad. That was perfect timing. Really what it boils down to is Bruce Willis should have been in Star Wars because he's great. Bruce Willis was in Last Man Standing, which is a great movie, which is also great. Primarchs, back to the subject.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's how you do it.
You know who else would have been great in that? Vin Diesel.
You know who should play the Emperor?
Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel, because he's all about family.
No.
That's exactly why I started laughing, because like you can't get away. The one fucking thing that Star Wars can't get away from is the goddamn Skywalker family. At least if Vin Diesel was in it at the end of it,
he'd be like, should have been in Star Wars. Yeah,
he should have played Rey.
Yeah, Vin Diesel should have been.
No. It's the end scene. He hasn't been in any of the movie at all.
I got it.
And she walks back into the bar, and he goes, "It's all about family."
Star Wars should have had, let me finish, I'm going to bring it back to the subject. Star Wars should have had Vin Diesel. Instead of Vin Diesel being in Saving Private Ryan as an Italian guy named Caparzo, which would have fit in the great movie Last Man Standing, which other things were great as that movie. Christopher Walken should be the Emperor in the new Emperor TV show, which reminds me of how great the Primarchs are.
The Emperor is Christopher Walken.
Dude, the Emperor should be Christopher Walken.
That'd be fucking
Stab
weird.
You in the face with
this fucking galaxy. Bring it back to home, my sons. Praise me, you animals.
I'm not a god.
I will send my legions to bring the universe back in the fold.
Oh, fuck.
Think about it.
It's either that or William Shatner.
No.
Those
William
two that are
Shatner's
stuck in
too
my
fat.
head.
William
Yeah,
Shatner
yes.
can be,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
his name? Mortarian.
Mortarian.
Some disease in my bowels.
So as a quick refresher, last episode we focused on the myths and legends that surrounded the origins of the Emperor, who is from now on played by Christopher Walken.
Dude, he needs to be Christopher Walken.
Is there any quotes for the Emperor?
There are a lot.
Oh, good.
They're
We're gonna
not
have
in
Tom
this
read 'em.
episode. I'm sorry.
You guys keep going. I'm going to look that up. We'll touch
All right.
base on it later.
Before looking into his efforts to create his own perpetuals, the Primarchs. As of the date of this recording, the last book of the Siege of Terra is out,
Allegedly.
meaning a lot of this lore is currently being expanded upon, with more of an explanation of the Imperial Biotechnical Division and who helped the Emperor being filled in quite recently. And I mean like within the last 2 to 3 years. It's important to look at Games Workshop's lore more like a well laid out sketch than a fully rendered art piece, though. The outline is there, the shapes have all been laid down, it's just the fine details of that piece of artwork that are missing. While it's easy to say this is all retconned lore, it's a bit more like G-Dub is now explaining the details of their earlier implications. For instance, the Emperor ran a program to make Primarchs and Space Marines. On face value, that's established. That was established as of like 2nd or 3rd edition. On face value, that makes it seem like he worked on this completely alone, in a massive facility, packed with technology, while also single-handedly fighting in every single battle of the Unification Wars. The implication is he had a plan. He wasn't doing all of this stuff. It's implied that he was the mastermind. And from what we know ever since they started to expand that lore way back in the late 80s, the Emperor has always been a massive planner, a forward thinker, a tactician, and a leader. So obviously he's not doing everything himself. If one of his major qualities is he's great at planning and he's a good leader, the outcome of that is he's good at making plans and then leading people to fulfill them. Not he's a great planner and massive leader. I'm going to do everything myself. That's not, neither of those terms mean that thing.
So he did the Thunder Warriors dirty.
Yeah, of course.
And it was all planned. Like he knew it was. He's like, yeah, I'm going to create these guys that are badass as hell, and then I'm going to kill them once I don't need them anymore because I'm going to make something better.
I thought we talked about that and you cried about that a couple episodes ago.
All right. I didn't.
All of that we just mentioned is to suggest that aside from the possibility of being in 200 places at the same time, he probably didn't actually work on any of these projects alone. That is the kind of the point there. All right, Tom, hit us with a quote. A Christopher Walken quote.
No, this is the Emperor quote.
Yeah, this is the Emperor's last.
This is the Emperor's
This is the last words of the Emperor of mankind before he was interred in the Golden Throne. The universe has many horrors yet to throw at us. This is not the end of our struggle. This is just the beginning of our crusade to save humanity. Be faithful, be strong, be vigilant.
Those were his last
That's
words.
his last words, yeah.
Or I'll stab you in the face with a fucking solder
with a flaming sword that I carry and gave to my son, Rabute.
Fucking love it, man.
What's there's another one that he said. Oh, this actually goes into what he said to the Thunder Warriors.
I need to hear this.
One unbreakable shield against the coming darkness. One last blade forged in defiance of fate. Let them be my legacy to the galaxy I conquered, and my final gift to a species I failed.
Rat bastard.
Minutes before he slaughtered all of Marky's poor boys.
Yeah,
I remember
dude.
when that one was. That one stated when it was quoted.
Yeah. Right before he massacred my boys, dude.
It just says Arcus Demonica, Emperor of Mankind. I don't know what the Arcus Demonica is, actually.
That's probably, I would imagine it's
Some type of scroll.
some sort of book or scroll. Yeah.
My flaming sword!
Stabbed him in the face.
Stab you in the face with a flaming sword that I gave to Rabute.
One of his plans had been to unite old Earth into Terra, And as those had started to solidify, the allies he had gathered over the last several thousand years, those being the other perpetuals, had started to leave his side until only two remained. Erda, the so-called mother of Primarchs, who we covered at the end of last episode, and Malkador the Sigillite, who is the last of the Sigillite order and had a hand in the Emperor finally revealing himself at the beginning of the Unification Wars. The Sigillites were an ancient ordo that had worked to save and collect artifacts and knowledge of old Earth's greatest civilizations before the wars of the Age of Strife could destroy it all. While the Sigillites were either disbanded or scattered, their fortress remained in the Himalayan mountains. Part of this original Himalayan.
Huh.
Yep. Part of this fortress would become the gene laboratories and eventually the Imperial dungeons under the Imperial Palace. Most of the Sigillite fortress still exists and serves as many different purposes of the Imperial Palace. We covered a couple of those in our Planet Spotlight Terra. If you want to find out other places that the Sigillite fortress was part of.
Along with all the hyper mutated humans. What are they called? Techno-barbarians?
We talked about a bunch of techno-barbarians. So
that's right. We did. Were there Mexican techno-barbarians?
Yeah.
Or was that all just a part of America?
Techno-barbarianos.
Murcia.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Murcia.
That's what I said. America.
It's not. No. You got it. You're mispronouncing it. It's not Murcia. It's Murcia. It's not Merca. It's Murcia.
Murky.
Are you making fun of my accent, right? Is that what we're doing?
I am making fun of your accent. It's you're pronouncing it wrong, boy.
You're talking about wrong to my friend here.
There was there was South Murcia and there was Murcia. I imagine. Yeah. South. I imagine there was probably quite a bit. Being that it's not an American-centric game is probably why, but there's not a lot of information about Murcia. There's a lot of information about various places in Western Europe, which makes sense because the game is from the UK.
Yeah, they can develop it a lot more without,
You have a tendency to write based on where you're from, too.
Yeah, because they were basically saying that Murcia was just a bunch of factories and industrialized areas across the entire country, right?
Yeah, essentially. It's one big factory complex.
Continent.
And I'm sure there's more detail on it. I'm sure we're going to get more detail on it. I'm sure when they're done with the Siege of Terra, they'll probably flirt with, or are we going to expand the Unification Wars a little bit more? Are we going to talk about the expansion of the Dark Age of Technology? That'd be another interesting time to tell some stories in because we don't really have a lot of stuff about any of that. So it really kind of depends. It seems to be what they're focusing on, though. We got a lot of War in Heaven stuff. We had a lot of hints about the War in Heaven. And then when the Necron got their big fluff up, their big fluff expansion, their big lore expansion in 6th edition, 7th edition, right when it started up until 8th, obviously, that's when we got a lot of the War in Heaven stuff filled in. So, again, they kind of do this thing where, you draw the outline of the horse and then you start to fill in all the details later. So we know all of this shit's laid out. We just don't know how it's connected yet. So the scattering. In 792.m30, Erda, most likely having her emotions having been manipulated by the ruinous powers, opened a warp vortex in the gene vaults and laboratories of the Imperial Biotechnical Division under the Imperial Palace. These vaults contained the 20 gestation capsules of the Primarchs, the unborn sons of the Emperor and Erda. This was how the Primarchs were scattered through the warp to human colony planets long since lost to mankind during the Age of Strife. While it is an uncertainty, it is hinted at that there was a three-way mental struggle that took place. Erda wanting her sons to be saved and raised with her help, the Emperor's will fighting to keep them to him on Terra, and the Chaos Gods wanting to corrupt each and scatter them to the demon worlds. The result was that they were actually lost to some of the oldest of humanity's colonies, places long since lost and way off the map. This was a double-edged sword, for not only did the Emperor not know where they were, but neither did the ruinous powers. There isn't any proof of this, but it has always been theorized that it was at this moment that Chaos touched some of the unborn Primarchs in their gestation capsule, potentially starting them down the path to becoming traitors to the Imperium.
Touched them in their no-no places.
One of those things. Remember how Chuck said last episode, the only reason Chaos lost was they didn't get the Primarchs they wanted.
Show me on the teddy bear.
Yeah, show me on the teddy
Chaos
bear.
touched you.
This would suggest that Chaos specifically chose the Primarchs they wanted to fall when they scattered them. But it's just one of those rumors. It's an Imperial rumor.
Propaganda.
This is a situation where no one came out on top. Nobody won. Erda lost her sons, although they wouldn't be raised in the brutal uncertainty she feared. It was uncertain if they were even alive, however. The ruinous powers didn't capture 20 new perpetuals, and the Emperor suffered a massive setback in his plans to start the Great Crusade. The Emperor raged at Erda for her actions, and she fled the Imperial Palace. However, much as he had never openly acted against any of the other perpetuals who had left his side, he also didn't run her down and destroy her. He knew exactly where she was hiding the entire time. As we covered last episode, she met her end at the hands of Erebus during the Siege of Terra about 200 to 300 years after the events of the Scattering. However, despite the setbacks, the Emperor was nothing if not resourceful and adaptable, and he forged ahead with his plans. The Imperial Biotechnical Division had already used samples from the genetic material of each Primarch to make the first Astartes gene seed solar decades before. This gene seed had even already been implanted into male adolescent human hosts. This allowed them to take on some of the strengths and traits of their gene fathers even decades before the Primarchs would even be born. Some of these Astartes had even seen battle already during the Unification Wars.
This was mainly the Dark Angels, right?
It was Dark Angels, the Dusk Raiders, which became the Death Guard, the Imperial Heralds, who became the Word Bearers, the World Eaters, who were the Warhounds, also fought in the Unification Wars. Several of the legions did. It's implied based on the foundings that the Dark Angels, the First Legion, was founded first. So if the Imperial Heralds, who are the 16th or 13th, no, 16th Legion, I can't remember at the time. We'll get there in this episode.
The legions or the two lost Primarchs, it doesn't say what legions they were or what.
2nd Legion and 12th Legion.
But they didn't have like a name associated with them? We
have no information.
Gotcha.
But that kind of goes to my point. We know that the First Legion founded was the Dark Angels, and we know that the Second Legion founded was unknown, and we know that the Salamanders are the 18th Legion, correct?
Shit, man.
Come on, Marky, be more on the spot. These are your boys.
I don't know shit about... They were my boys in 5th edition, 4th edition. Everything I know about lore, I learned through this podcast.
Right? From us yelling at you?
Yeah.
The Salamanders are... That's Vulcan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right. The 18th Legion. So the Salamanders, being the 18th Legion, also saw service during the Unification Wars. That would suggest, again, that would imply that since the legions were founded in order, that the Emperor had gone from the First Legion to the 18th Legion in founding before the end of the Unification Wars, which was easily, and we'll actually get into that right now, tinfoil hat time, easily like 50 or so years before the Primarchs were scattered. So to put our tinfoil hats on... I feel like this is another area where there are a lot of heavy implications that are very well set for future development. We know that the Genos warriors, for instance, predated the Emperor's efforts to even make super soldiers. So the Genos warriors, which are just uplifted humans, essentially, that can be any age, served as part of the Sola Exilia. They are just normal. Essentially, they're like super Imperial Guard, if you want to say. And the Genos warriors were actually from one of the other. We didn't get into the details of it because it's literally a footnote, but they were from one of the techno-barbarian tribes. So when the Emperor fought that techno-barbarian tribe and saw these warriors, he was like, oh shit, son, I need some. So he defeated them and then folded the Genos warriors into him and then figured out how to basically replicate them. And he used the Genos warriors to perfect the technology and even make his own. And these were Marky's boys, the Thunder Warriors, who were much better than the Genos warriors, much brutaler, much bigger, much better at warfare, but weren't necessarily good enough to be Astartes or to be Primarchs. We also know he needed to perfect the Thunder Warriors to make the first Astartes. And sometimes people call these legions before the Primarchs were born the legions from Earth Proto-Astartes, although it's not really true because some of the Proto-Astartes, in air quotes, were some of the founders of other chapters, other major chapters. Some of the traitor legion that didn't fall were Astartes from Earth rather than Astartes from the Primarchs planets, for instance.
Is it, and this may be a dumb question, is it common, or I guess is it possible to still have Proto-Astartes alive today, or would they most likely have all been killed off or died? Or
from what we know, I think, and it's a super obscure piece of lore, and I would have to track down what book it's in. There's only one Marine that has survived from that time. That's not a traitor. No, Dante's only like 500 years old.
So they say that Dante's like the oldest space Marine. So in that case, there would be no more Proto-Astartes from that time.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And which is, so there's two things that make that not necessarily true. The first thing that makes that not necessarily true is there is a story, and I'd have to track down where it is because it's super obscure, where they find a space marine essentially orbiting a derelict spacecraft in an old battlefield in his spacesuit, and they bring him on board and they wake him up, and he's like, to arms, boys, Horus is about to attack. And they're like, dog,
that fool's been dead for a minute.
That was 10,000 years ago. So, whether or not he's the oldest because he was in status for 9,999 years as to where Dante's been active for 500 is part of the argument.
He's the oldest, like excluding dreadnoughts and shit.
Right.
There's
oldest
also
alive,
active. Living. Yeah.
There's also dreadnoughts, several dreadnoughts, and then the other thing is traitor marines. Abaddon, for instance.
Right. From that time.
What a lot of people say is, well, they were in the warp, and since time moves differently in the warp, they might not be that old. You're right, but they also might be quite a bit older. Just because time doesn't work the way that we think it does in the warp doesn't mean that it's always slower. It could mean that it's quite a bit faster. It could mean that for every year that passes in real space, Abaddon leads a century of warfare in the warp. We don't know. We just have no way of splitting that hair.
Taint works completely differently. Right. He's not a human anymore. He's a warp entity, essentially.
Which is the other thing that people say is that the warp powers have changed how long that they live. What we do know is the reason that most space marines die is through combat.
Yeah, there's not
a lot of there's not a lot dying of essentially. We also know that there are potential that some of the Grey Knights are still some of the oldest Grey Knights. The I can't remember what they're called. They're either I want to say faceless, but that's not the right word. There's a word for Grey Knights who are super no longer have titles, don't refer to name anymore. And there's hints, not outright statements, but there's implications there that they might herald back to the end of the Horus heresy. Because we know that some of the Grey Shields that were used to found the Grey Knights were some of the heroes of the traitor legions who did not go traitor. So there's all of these different implications. There's nothing outright stated, though. As far as outright 100% written in stone lore is concerned, Dante is the oldest, and he's about 550, maybe 600 years old, roughly.
Yeah, he's old as shit.
Yeah, he's very, very old. And along those lines, the Proto-Astartes that were folded into the normal Astartes, and in a lot of cases were seen as being a little bit more powerful than standard Astartes, they became kind of the blueprint for what the Emperor decided that he wanted to make Primarchs out of to replace the Perpetuals that had used to be on his side. And that's the whole thing. The Emperor created the Primarchs to replace the Perpetuals. He made the Primarchs to be Perpetuals. And this kind of sets up, just like the question you asked, Marky, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the Primarchs come before the Astartes, or did the Astartes come before the Primarchs? It's super common to assume or think, since all the Astartes take traits from their Primarchs, that they're effectively their sons. And the novels and the lore uses that word so much that it kind of asserts it. But, for instance, Loken was older than Horus because Loken fought in the Unification Wars on Terra, and Horus was a baby boy, wasn't even a baby boy, was a collection of stem cells in a laboratory.
He was a twinkle in the gestation sack of his father.
Yeah. So like, it's so weird. It puts this weird thing in your mind. My guess is it's probably a little bit more likely to refer, especially to these early Astartes, as more like nephews or cousins. And my guess is this probably goes back to their idea that there were a lot of failed attempts to make Primarchs. They talk about it took 200 to 300 years for the Emperor to perfect the Primarchs, to make each Primarch. It's that scene in Alien Resurrection where Ripley, the clone of Ripley, walks into the horrible room with all of the failed clones of Ripley. How many Primarchs were made before he had perfected the scenario? And out of which of those Primarchs did he take the original genome seed that became what he used to grow the Astartes organs and gene seed with? You know what I mean?
Speaking of Ripley, dude, she was smoking back in alien times. I just watched the new Avatar, like Way of the Water or whatever, and I was like, man, she used to be fine.
Well, it was 40 years ago, dude.
Yeah.
She still is. I'd still hit it.
I mean, would.
I'd still do it.
And the other thing that they talk about a lot are like the custodes take a long time to make because they're individually gene tailored as well. But even then, if
They're made to order,
if you're making something from the ground up, how long does it really take? Like what's reasonable? 10 years maybe? So if we have the First Legion Dark Angels fighting during the last decades of the Unification War, and the Unification War ended between 515 and 535 M30, and the Primarchs were scattered in 792 M30, we have 57 years of time where there were Astartes, but there were no Primarchs. So it's really hard to swallow that the Astartes were made from the Primarchs gene seed after the Primarchs were born. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It definitely hints that there was a lot more shit going on. Or, and Marky, you just brought this up, maybe they propagandaed the shit out of all of it, and maybe the actual Unification Wars didn't end until well into M31. Maybe the Unification Wars dragged on. He founded the Imperium when he founded the Imperium, but a lot of the techno-barbarians hadn't given up, and there was still a bunch of infighting, or there was something still going on. Or the Emperor had been trying to make Primarchs for 200 to 300 years and had used all of his failed experiments to harvest, like I said, those weird Ripley clones from Alien Resurrection. He had used those organs to make stuff. Or the Primarchs are actually genomes mapped off of the first generation of Astartes. So he made the first generation of Astartes and then was like, it would be great if I had better ones, and I'm going to make Primarchs. So maybe Space Marines was the original plan and Primarchs were the second plan. There's just so much chicken and egg in all of this foundational stuff, because the Astartes legions definitely pre-exist the Primarchs in lore. But they're the sons of the Primarchs, which doesn't make sense.
So each of the, like when he was creating the Astartes, he pulled them from different areas of Terra, correct?
Right. So he came up with these genome patterns that he wanted, and those genome patterns became the basics. Were like pulled from the basic Primarchs. Yeah. But he created each of them to war in a different way. So he made the Thousand Sons to be great at psychic stuff. He made the Imperial Fists good at siege stuff.
So
defense stuff, etc.
The gene seed is like implanted into because the gene seed is just it's like a little sac in their like neck or something, isn't it?
So there are two gene seed organs in a modern Astarte. There's one in the neck and there's one like more in the core of their body. Yeah. So the one that's in their neck is implanted when they're indoctrinated, usually when they're pulled into the project, which happens at around 9 to 10 years old. We'll get into all of this stuff in detail in the Space Marine episode.
Right.
And then when it grows to maturity, which we assume is the maturity of the human body, so around 20 or 30, the apothecaries harvest that gene seed, the upper gene seed. And then that gene seed goes into the Astarte chapter vault. And that's the gene seed that's used to make the organs for the next generation of Space Marines. Gotcha. The one that's more in their body is harvested upon death, so they have a backup. It's an extra. And then, just like all the planets in the Imperium pay a tithe in people to the Imperium, the Space Marine chapters pay a gene tithe, where a certain number of their gene seed is sent back to Terra, and it's hidden in the gene vaults.
Yeah,
and we don't know where we don't know where those gene vaults are.
So could it be said that they didn't get those gene seeds initially from the Primarchs, and then
there's no way they could have.
Right. That's what you're saying, like the whole chicken egg thing.
Yeah.
And then this is before they were essentially, I don't want to say tainted, but before they were not even warped, molded into the current Astartes that they are. Like you say, like Space Wolves, for example. They didn't really start taking, or Blood Angels. Blood Angels didn't really start being changed into what they were until they started taking the gene seed from Sanguinius.
Right.
And then once they all started getting indoctrinated in that way, where they put, Sanguinius's gene seed into them, it changed them to be that way. And then, so in a sense, the Astartes did come first, right?
So that's a major contention in the lore. And one of the major contentions in the lore is that the Terran-based Astartes legionaries have a problem with the legionaries of their own legion who are from their Primarch's home planet. There's a lot of infighting. Loken, for example, being the famous Sons of Horus one, he's a Terran son of Horus. He's a Terran Luna Wolf. And he's the only Terran Luna Wolf who's made part of the Mournival, which is Horus's inner circle. And he's constantly kind of fighting against the inner circle and other Astartes of the Sons of Horus because of that, because he thinks different and he acts different. He's not as connected to Horus. He's not as easy to manipulate and to fall in line as everybody else.
Right.
Before the tinfoil hat comes off, I think what happened, and I think it's so lost in propaganda and it's so lost in like the ancient imperial records and air quotes, but I think what happened is the Emperor realized that the Thunder Warriors weren't right, and he started working on Thunder Warriors 2.0. And he probably learned that if I implant a bunch of these organs into a 20-year-old, stuff goes bad 90% of the time. So I'm going to start implanting all of my crazy organs into a 9 or 10-year-old. Okay, well, it seems to be working, and it seems to be really stable, so this is what I'm going to do. And then he started working on Gene Seed 2.0. And then when he had the legions that started probably reinforcing and replacing the Thunder Warriors from the inside, and probably like accidentally shooting them in the back on the field and stuff, probably, accidentally order 66 a couple of guys every time you're in a fight, new guys, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's just assume he kept doing that. And during all of this, during the conflict, the Perpetuals are leaving, and he's like, well, I can't hand the First Legion Dark Angels to my buddy Ralph the Perpetual, because Ralph the Perpetual was like, fuck you, Emperor, you're a dick, I'm out, and left the party. So now I've got to replace Ralph the Perpetual with somebody. Well, I'm going to take my top performing Dark Angel Astartes, I'm going to harvest his gene seed, and then I'm going to make him the basis for my own Perpetuals, and I'm going to call them Primarchs, because Primarch is a title that I've already given. Because remember, Primarch was originally like commander. It was a It was a title. It
like
was a
War
role.
Master or whatever.
It wasn't a species. So I think that's what happened. I think that the Astartes were made first, and then the Emperor saw these kind of standout Astartes, and then he used that as the basic map. That's not what the lore says, though. The lore says that the Astartes came from the Primarchs. But again, the Astartes were made, in some cases, a couple of 100 years before the Primarchs were.
Do we know
it's
like
so back and forth?
Because you know how the Primaris, there was a little bit of friction between the Primaris and the, Firstborn Marines.
Yeah.
Do we know if there was some rub between the Thunder Warriors and the Proto Astartes or the new Astartes? There was?
Oh, yeah. There was definitely conflict between the Thunder Warriors, especially in the First Legion. There was a lot of back and forth. Because the Thunder Warriors very quickly realized they weren't getting reinforced anymore. These new guys were getting reinforced. And these new guys had slightly better equipment and slightly
so almost
better.
The exact same scenario with Primaris and Firstborn. Because I remember when I used to talk to Tom about it when Primaris first came out, Tom was telling me like, oh yeah, when they'd meet the Primaris were like welcoming or like trying to be, they're coming in with open arms like, oh brother, and then like the Firstborn are like, who the fuck is this guy? Like you're not one of us. Like you're, I forgot how he put it, but it was basically of that same
You have been through the trials.
Yeah.
You're
exactly.
obviously
suffer the suffering we have.
Yeah. You're obviously the next model. Like, I can tell you're the next model. What the fuck, dude? Like, why are you here? And the other thing that's interesting, and we'll get into this when we talk about Primaris Space Marines, which when we talk about the Primaris faction, when we talk about the Space Marine faction itself, we'll get a little bit into Primaris lore. There's a lot of stuff in the Primaris program that says the Primaris Marines started being worked on during the end of the Great Crusade. And of course, that's potentially a retcon. I mean, there's
a whole other subject. Yeah.
There's enough empty space in the lore that to call it a retcon is not super technical, but I can see why that irritates people. But, the idea that the Primaris potentially were maybe that's what we're seeing with kind of this back and forth of this lore. Maybe the Primaris are based on the Primarch gene seed,
like straight from it versus
yeah,
straight from the udder.
We'll find out. We'll find if there ends up being Chaos Primaris. We'll know. Oh, okay, well, that's obviously what happened. We'll find out, I'm sure. Anyway, tinfoil hat off. The official lore says that the Astartes were based on the Primarch gene seed, although that doesn't really make sense because the timeline doesn't match up. But that's the fun thing, especially about 30K lore, is that so much of it is specifically written to be wrapped up in lies, misinformation, and propaganda that even reading the quote-unquote official written in stone lore out of the rule book, I mean, like, cool, I'm glad you read that. Realize that the rule book also says most of this is the Imperium's feeding you bullshit. The rule book tells you the Imperium is lying to you, and then you're really surprised when the Imperium is lying to you. Space blueberries or commies or something, I don't know. What were you going to say?
Well, I was trying to...
You were trying to queue up a soundboard and you
I
lost it?
I was going to say the Imperium.
The Imperium.
Always feeding you the truth.
My greatest gift to humanity is lies.
Misinformation, and hey, you got to do it. Misinformation.
The Primarchs are out there.
You got a David Duchovny voice? Come on, man.
I don't have that one.
Listen, Scully. I'm pretty sure the Primarchs are out there somewhere. I don't even remember how he talks. To tell you the truth.
I've been wanting to watch X-Files recently too. So
I watched it.
Does it hold up? It doesn't hold up, does it?
It's weird. So I watched all of it. I enjoyed all of it. I had a period of time where I was unemployed, and for whatever reason, I decided to rewatch all of the X-Files. And the X-Files is one of those series where you start watching it and it's in 6:9, or not 6:9, it's in 4:3. And then like halfway through the second or third season, it's just all of a sudden in widescreen. And you're like, wait, what? What happened? At least it doesn't happen in the middle of an episode. But it's just, it's interesting. And there's also the first season. It's like, what's the show that we used to rag on all the time? Supernatural, where the first season you could tell that it was all these shitty cover bands. The X-Files has the same thing. The first season, it's just all this shitty cover band music. Yeah. And then the second season, they had enough money to like buy a ZZ Top song, like rights to it. And you're just like, oh yeah, you start grooving and bopping a little bit. Oh man, the fucking X-Files. It was worth it. If you've got, if you have the nostalgia plug, rewatch it.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoyed it.
Been lately.
I didn't watch any of the new stuff though. I know that they've got like a movie and 2 new seasons, or a movie and 1 new season or something. But I had watched the Twin Peaks. Like,
I watched the first movie they had. Like, that's when I stopped watching X-Files, was after they had the first movie.
Was that the one with the bees? I remember there being a movie with bees that I watched.
Yeah, I think so. It's the one where Scully's pregnant with an alien.
Yeah. Okay. And there's like the spaceship under the ice cap, and there's bees.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the one. That's the last thing I ever watched. That's literally all I remember. Yeah.
Oh man, that's another. There's a guy that's in that all the time. That's another one of those, like, they always used him as a bad guy, and he's in a bunch of them. He ends up being like a reoccurring villain. Kerchak, something like that. Anyway, man, X-Files. Marky, this is your fault.
Sorry.
So what we do know is that while the Primarchs and Custodes have to be individually gene-tailored and lab-grown, Astartes can be mass-produced. The process of making a Space Marine starts with recruiting adolescent warriors and then implanting them with essentially what amounts to a bunch of extra organs. As much as they might pale in direct comparison to the Primarchs on an individualistic level, Primarchs took centuries to make and perfect. Thousands of Astartes warriors could be made in a solar decade and had already been in production for their need in the final battles of the Unification Wars. So it was that by 798.M30, the Emperor had the transhuman legions he required to start the Great Crusade, even in the absence of the Primarchs. As an aside, the Custodes are somewhere between Primarchs and Astartes. Their gene seed is based on one of those vanilla Primarch genomes that we mentioned in the last episode, and that was another thing that is in lore. The first part of making the Primarchs was that he did make blank Primarchs. He essentially made vanilla-flavored Primarchs. Custodes also undergo a further 12 changes that are on top of what an Astartes goes through, and the Primarch gene seed source they're based on is also only one step removed from the Emperor himself's genome, and he oversaw and works on all of them, or did work on all of them specifically. And don't worry, if you guys want to know more about the process of making a Space Marine or the process of making a Custode, they will get their own faction overview series, just not today.
Or in the near future.
Remember when you used to list off what episode we would get to? 162.
Yeah, it's a throwback to like episode 2. Back and then be like, yeah, we'll get to it. Episode 65.
Tom, you had something about the Custodes there? The custards?
What did I say? I was going to say something about them. Oh, yeah, the Primarch original recipe.
Yeah. 12 herbs. It's even great because the Custodes have 12 special herbs and spices added.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out today that I think they're called the Pillar Custodes, the Custodes that came out of If the Emperor Had a Speech-to-Text Device, the banana boys, the oiled up ones that aren't wearing any armor.
So they're based. It's going to be a hot take, but I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it either, but I'm very familiar with the meme.
Have you watched it, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I mean,
it's apparently
I'm curious
really
about
funny.
your opinion.
What
is it funny to you?
Yeah, it was all right.
I know, like, people love it.
I feel that the humor of it was probably very of the time. I don't know. I'd have to go track it down because I think it's gone, right?
Is it?
Yeah, he got DCMA'd by.
Oh,
I think he got DCMA'd.
I have to watch it somewhere else or something.
Yeah, it might still be on YouTube. But they had these. There's the 3 Custodes that they're wearing their helmets, but they're not wearing any clothes. They're basically wearing their helmets and loincloths, and they're all oiled up.
Yeah.
Those are based on 3 characters from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I never got that reference. I thought they were funny as fuck, but I never got the reference. It was from an anime.
Yeah, me and the wife tried to watch JoJo, and we couldn't get through it. But I hear that you have to watch like the later seasons to really enjoy it. But I was just like, I don't know.
Oh my God.
There's only so much time in the day.
I have met your wife's sister because we were trying to figure out what that weird Pumi Puani show was.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
remember?
That's right. Dude,
we watched it when I was out there.
That's right. The dude with the spiked nutsack. Yeah.
Fucking anime is on so many drugs, dude.
Oh my God. That's right.
Oh my God. You got to show that to Tom. You gotta show it to him, man.
Yeah, Tom's not an anime guy. I know you're not
neither
either,
am I, and it's hysterical anyway. It does it so over the top.
Wasn't it from Fooly Cooly?
It's like that.
It's like Fooly Cooly. It was an anime that only ran for like 2 episodes. It's fucking ridiculous.
It was hilarious.
The dad's afro attack where he has little afro guys that come out of his afro that throw afro pics. It's so all over the place. It's such a crazy show. Oh man. That's how we get to anime from Custodes. So the Great Rescue Mission, or as the Imperium calls it, the rediscovery of the Primarchs. As the Imperium began to spread into the stars during the Great Crusade, the Emperor utilized his psychic foresight and powers of precognition to start and track down his wayward sons. As each Primarch was like a father and older brother to the Astartes of their legions, as each was reunited, they became stronger as a cohesive fighting unit. Much like the Thunder Warriors before them, each of the 20 Primarchs was matched to a style of warfare and shared the general disposition and temperament of the warriors who had been copied from their gene seed. The rediscovery of the Primarchs marked the height of the Great Crusade, the legions growing ever more powerful as they set about the task of bringing hundreds of worlds back into the Imperium. At first, thousands and then hundreds of thousands of human-settled worlds were brought back into the Imperial compliance by the conquest of the reunited Primarchs and their legions. Like the demigods and heroes of ancient Terran legend, the Primarchs were unstoppable forces on the battlefield, their power irresistible, and their presence enough to empower their troops to ever greater feats.
They were badass, I guess you could say.
It was one of those things where, like, you find the last puzzle piece and the puzzle gets so much better, sort of things. The picture becomes crisp. You know what you have.
Yeah. It was enhanced.
Yep.
Enhance.
But yeah, like the Primarchs are just described as being
perfect.
It's fucking Hercules on a mortal battlefield. It just wading through people, knocking them down left and right. And I think that's done on purpose. I think the Primarchs are very much modeled after the Greek heroes and the Greek demigods in a lot of ways. But for all their powers, their status as perpetuals, and the high hopes the Emperor had placed upon their shoulders, the Primarchs proved to be all but too human at their core, and they possessed the flaws that had forever been a hallmark of the human condition. Arrogance at their own power, jealousy among themselves, highly competitive natures, all of these things led to them holding grudges amongst themselves and eventually even against their father, the Emperor. Some have theorized that these weren't just the flaws of humanity, but the very corruption that chaos gifted onto them as they had been scattered. But ultimately, it doesn't matter much, for it was these flaws that doomed the Imperium to the darkness of the coming Horus heresy, and possibly what doomed the next 10,000 years of human existence, as it stagnated, decayed, and became a tyrannical engine bent toward only war.
You're telling me the Emperor didn't see this coming? He didn't see this coming?
I'm pretty sure he saw it coming.
I don't know, man. It's like how do I put it? He's all-seeing, all-knowing. He sees all this coming. He's planned it all out. I feel like it's it's not called a mulligan. What do you call it when you have that in a story, when you have that one thing, a goober? Is it a goober?
Deus ex machina?
What's that?
When you have the engine of the gods, it's the thing that happens in a story that makes everything fit all of a sudden, that comes out of left field and doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking like goober is the thing I think that was the thing that they called it in Spider-Man. Goober is like there's another word for it, and I think you might know it, but it's essentially the thing that the object that beats the bad guy. MacGuffin. There you go. Yeah, that's
the MacGuffin.
Everything is like, oh yeah, he knew that was going to happen. He knew it was going to happen. He planned that out.
I think you kind of uncovered something interesting. I think there's two potentials. Either the Emperor knew what was coming and knew what was happening and took the only steps that he could, or that he thought he could take, in order to basically assure that humanity didn't completely destroy and eat itself.
Yeah.
Or the Emperor wasn't nearly as precognitive as everybody gives him credit for.
Right.
And like, I think that comes down to storytelling elements. So not to return to Dune, because we return to Dune a lot, but to return to Dune, one of the things about Paul Atreides and one of the things about Leto Atreides, the God Emperor in the Dune universe, is they have precognition. And one of the things that damns Paul in the second book, Dune Messiah, is that he knows exactly what's happening. So essentially, and spoiler alert for a book that came out before Warhammer 40k was a property, but in Dune Messiah, somebody sets off an atomic weapon and it literally burns Paul's eyes out. Paul's eyes are burned from his head. And because of that, if Paul doesn't take the exact steps that he already precognitively knows that he's going to take, he can't see, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So he's relying on the fact that his precognition shows him exactly what's going to happen. So he sees, in air quotes, everything that's happening as if he still has his eyes, because he knows the path that he has to take. And he feels like he's stuck to that path because, one, every time he wanders from it, he just gets dragged back to it. And two, if he doesn't take that path, much worse things happen. So either that's what the Emperor had or has, and the Emperor knew I have to take these steps for this to happen, and this is the best outcome. Or, and I think this is kind of what you're hinting at, the Emperor had like a more D&D or role-playing precog power where like he could make a check every couple of days, roll a 20 and see what you get. And then the DM knew what he rolled, but the Emperor didn't know what he rolled. And sometimes the DM would give him actual information and sometimes he would give him false information. And we don't really know because the way that he's presented by Imperial propaganda
is all seeing, all knowing.
However, the Emperor also absolutely refused to call himself a god and rejected his own godhood, which would insinuate that he didn't have precognitive powers.
Okay.
It's interesting. Maybe it's a little bit more like being really good at, or like the Oracle in the Matrix. The Oracle in the Matrix kind of knows what's going to happen, but she doesn't really know what's going to happen. And that's probably, maybe that's a little bit more where the Emperor is. I like that, Marky. That's a good.
Yeah, or not to bring it back to Marvel and their storytelling, but like how Doctor Strange was like, there's only one scenario that this is going to work where the human race doesn't die out. I can't tell you what it is, but you essentially need to sacrifice yourself at one point in time, or you're going to die at one point in time in order for this to happen.
Maybe that's even closer to what it is the Emperor had to take moments to like go into a room by himself to view all, I ran the scenario 10,297 times and only in one do we win. Maybe he had to do that.
Yeah.
And the less time he had to do that, the less accurate he was. Or, as soon as factors that he's not accounting for start changing, and then as soon as your legions are hundreds of thousands of light years away from you, do you really have enough information to make an accurate prediction anymore? Like, there's all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Or was the Cabal powerful enough that they were able to fuck up the Emperor's plans?
Who knows?
On that vein, it's far more likely it was simply the hubris and flaws in humanity, flaws that maybe even the Emperor had, as Marky just brought up. Just as Erda had seen before the scattering that the Emperor's attitudes towards his sons was detached and clinical to an extreme. After the Primarch Angron was rediscovered, the Emperor noted the cerebral cybernetic modifications known as the Butcher's Nails. These implants had been designed and then buried into Angron's mind, allowing only a release from the endless pain when the Primarch was slaughtering the enemy. This is a useful tool used by the gladiator slavers of his home world of Nukira in order to make the fights as bloody and brutal as possible. During the research of this, with the aid of the Mechanicum techno-archaeologist Arkan Land, the Emperor investigated the nature of the terrible technology, which he had discovered was slowly killing Angron. It's really unclear whether or not he was investigating this for its potential use in his own troops, or if he was actually trying to save Angron's life. What matters, though, is how the Emperor explained to Land during this investigation that he held no emotion toward any of the Primarchs. They were simply tools he had created to serve him in his plans for humanity. When Land asked why the Emperor let the Primarchs refer to him as father, although the Emperor claimed he had little time or even the most basic of familial feelings, the Emperor recalled the ancient Terran story of Pinocchio, a toy that sought to become a real boy. The Emperor said that it is the nature of all stupid creations to call their creator father. So the Emperor didn't give a fuck about the Primarchs.
No, hell no. Of course not.
So it's that whole thing. Are the Primarchs human because they were touched by chaos, or are the Primarchs human because their father was an asshole?
Almost like Frankenstein as well, right? Frankenstein saw his creator as a father figure.
Yeah, and then when his creator rejected him, he got pissed
and killed him. Right? Is that how the story goes?
Pretty much.
I've only seen it in the movies.
You've only seen it in the movies.
Yeah, I haven't read the book.
I have to reread the book. In one of those weird circumstances, I have seen so many movies and stories based on Frankenstein that they all kind of jumbles as one mismatch of stories in my head. I haven't read Frankenstein since college.
The last Frankenstein I saw was I think I saw it on Netflix, but it was the one with, I can't remember the guy who played Two-Face.
Aaron Eckhart. I Frankenstein.
Yeah, I Frankenstein.
When they tried to underworld the Frankenstein franchise and it didn't work.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, God, this is like, I like bad movies, but I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I love Underworld.
There was definitely a stretch of time in the late 2000s, mid 2000s, before the 2010s, where like every single movie was like, in a dark dystopian future where genetic technology rules, the devil and God are fighting, and it's these cybernetic warriors from the ancient past future that must protect humanity. And you're like, why is everything cyberpunk?
Yep.
God, like what happened? Like,
I really like the take on what was it, Van Helsing?
Yeah, Van Helsing was
Frankenstein
fun.
And Van Helsing, with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. That movie isn't nearly as bad as people. Well, I mean, it's not good, but it's not nearly as bad.
People thought it was bad?
My favorite thing was the way that they made Dracula.
Yeah.
Like, they made him really, like, just not give... Like, the brides were like, you don't care? He's like, no.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Like, I loved it, dude.
I've been looking
like,
at your face.
A heart. Like,
I've been looking at your face for 500 fucking years. Go away.
You stupid bitch. I really liked, what was it, Dracula Untold? Have you seen that one?
The one with fuck.
I'm trying to think of what else.
The one that actually he becomes Vlad the Impaler essentially.
He was Vlad the Impaler and he becomes Dracula.
He's a Justicarian, and then he finds I like the vampire in that one.
Yeah, he finds like essentially the first vampire or whatever it was, the one that was
the Nosferatu that was in the cave. Yeah. There was some cool parts to that. I can't remember that guy's name, but he's another one of those like early 2010s, which just in everything.
Yeah.
So
why didn't you like it, Tom? Not to deviate from the pod, but
it just wasn't. It was too like they made him a good guy. And Dracula to me is like the essence of evil. Like Dracula is always seen as like, no, like he murders you.
So they humanized him too much.
Like why the fuck do I care if he's fighting for his family? Like I don't give a fuck. Like like nah, dude, just fucking kill a bitch and eat her.
I think what I see is like more of how he lost his humanity, right? So like he had it until he lost it because he lost his family, and then that's why he's a heartless.
They spend too much time. So I really like stories where the hero falls. That's one of my favorite like archetypes. I like the story of the Blackguard, the paladin who completely falls to the darkness. I wouldn't call Deadpool that. Deadpool's an asshole before he becomes Deadpool. Deadpool doesn't fall, but the whole idea of like the courtly knight, the Dracula story, the courtly knight who falls to darkness.
That's the whole reason I like 40k.
You have to spend, but you have to spend in a movie. You spend 20 minutes on how he was a good guy. Then you have him fall, and then you spend 40 minutes on how he's an asshole and a monster. And that movie very much like
other way. Yeah.
And the needle, even when he was the bad guy, the needle kept straying back. So even though I liked the movie for certain things, I can see where Tom's coming from.
No,
definitely.
Because he's literally Vlad the Impaler, but he's also a family man.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what I'm talking about. Like, why the fuck? Like, you're gonna make him Vlad the Impaler, and you're gonna be like, my family.
He's like, he's like, I left all the asshole impaling behind me. Yeah. Now I have a family.
In the new family sitcom from NBC. In the new family sitcom from NBC, Vlad's a little impaley, if you know what I mean. Oh, Jason, why are you late? Oh, Dad, I stayed out with the jocks. I'm gonna go impale them. Like,
Don't worry, honey. We made kebabs for dinner. My favorite. Perfect.
Tom, you're hired for the writer's room. All right, guys. So we are on to the Primarchs. This is a list of the Primarchs presented in the order that we discovered that. I'm sorry. This is a list of the Primarchs presented in the order that they were rediscovered and reunited with their legions during the Great Crusade. We didn't discover them. Just so you know, it wasn't the three of us tooling around the universe in our spaceships discovering Primarchs.
I mean, maybe. What the fuck do you know, huh?
That's true. We haven't gotten there yet. Maybe that's our future past. This list was compiled using the available roadmap that's laid out in the Black Library and game books, and it's as close to official as we can get. There exists a slight chance that this list will somehow still be modified, but it's unlikely that it'll change at this point. So in 801.M30, Horus is discovered on Cathonia and reunited with the 16th Legion Luna Wolves, which would later be renamed the Sons of Horus. And 819 M30, Leman Russ is discovered on Fenris and reunited with the 6th Legion Space Wolves. Sometime between 819 and M24.M30, the Primarch of the 2nd Legion is discovered and reunited with their Legion. However, the Primarch, Legion, and World have all been redacted from Imperial record. In 824.M30, Ferrus Manus is discovered on Medusa and reunited with the 10th Legion Iron Hands. In 830.M30, Fulgrim is discovered on Chemos and reunited with the 3rd Legion Emperor's Children. In 832.M30, Vulcan is discovered on Nocturne and reunited with the 18th Legion Salamanders. In 835.M30, Rogaldorn is discovered on Inwit and reunited with the 7th Legion Imperial Fists. In 837.M30, Reboot Gilliman is discovered on Macraig and reunited with the 13th Legion Ultramarines. In 840.M30, Magnus the Red is discovered on Prospero and reunited with the 15th Legion Thousand Sons. 843.M30, Sanguinius is discovered on Baal and reunited with the 9th Legion Blood Angels. In 846.M30, Lion L. Johnson is discovered on Caliban and reunited with the 1st Legion Dark Angels. In 849.M30, Perturabo is discovered on Olympia and reunited with the 4th Legion Iron Warriors. Then in 854.M30, Mortarion is discovered on Barbarus and reunited with the 14th Legion Dusk Raiders, who are renamed the Death Guard. In 857.M30, Logar is discovered on Colchis and reunited with the 17th Legion Imperial Heralds, who are renamed the Word Bearers. In 865.M30, Jakatai Khan is discovered on the world of Mundus Planus and reunited with the 5th Legion White Scars. In 896.M30, Conrad Cruz is discovered on the world of Nostromo and reunited with the 8th Legion Night Lords. In 899.M30, Angron is discovered on the world of Narcia and reunited with the 12th Legion Warhounds, who are later renamed the World Eaters. In 922.M30, Corvus Corax is discovered on the world of Deliverance and reunited with the 19th Legion. Then sometime between 922 and 981.M30, the Primarch of the 11th Legion is discovered and reunited with their Legion. However, the Primarch, Legion, and World have all been redacted from Imperial record. In 981.M30, Alfarius Omegon is discovered and reunited with the 20th Legion Alpha Legion. There is no planet listed for the Alpha Legion. In fact, a lot of the Alpha Legion shit is hidden. So I kind of want to know, where are your guys' favorite legions?
I really like the name Warhound, so I really like the World Eaters. Let me go down the list. Let's see. Don't really care for the Black Legion. I don't really care about the Space Wolves.
The Black Legion is the Sons of Horus, and they're not called the Black Legion until
later.
Much
You're
later.
talking first founding.
Yeah.
Okay, like 30K, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
If I were to give you
Like a top
$2,000 and say, with this $2,000, go to your local Warhammer store and buy and paint a Legion, a 30K Legion. You don't have to play Horus Heresy. You can still play them in 40K. But I want you to have a 30K Legion. What would you
it would
make?
probably be the Warhounds or the World Eaters.
You do World Eaters?
Yeah, I think so. What about you, Tom?
It's real tough.
Yeah,
It's real tough because I like Angron. I love Angron. Like the fact that he's like a gladiator, like all that, like dope. Love Angron. But realistically, I'd probably still, if it's a specific like 30K army, I'm really torn between the White Scars and the Salamanders. And I think if I'm going to my roots, it would probably be the White Scars. Because when I first heard of Warhammer, especially 30K, like first founding, Space Marines, all that stuff,
right?
I think of like Warhammer or like second edition, third edition, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I think of back then is White Scars on bikes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody was like, well, the White Scars are basically a motorcycle club for Space Marines. And I was like, that's my favorite.
You're like,
you know?
I like that.
Yeah.
Much,
So I'd probably say that. Like, definitely not my favorite Legion, but if I was like...
Style.
Yeah, like if I was going back then, I'd probably say White Scars.
What's your favorite Legion then?
Of all time?
Yeah.
You know, for the longest time, it was Flesh Terrors.
They're a chapter. So out of the original 18.
20. Oh, yeah, 18.
Oh, I thought that's what I was doing.
No, flesh tears are a
flesh
No.
tears.
I mean,
subchapter.
if we're saying Legion, I was saying White Scars,
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, when you're saying, okay, I got you. Yeah. Okay, I got confused.
yeah. I was like, favorite Space Marine Legion, more than likely White Scars, because it wins out on nostalgia when I think of old timey.
Yeah,
But
they're
favorite Space Marine chapter would be
they're not my
Flesh Tears.
favorite type of Space Marine, but if I had to pick a Legion, that's probably where I'd go.
Yeah.
That or Salamander, one of the two.
Got you.
More likely White Scars, because I don't give a fuck about people as much as Salamanders do.
And if you were to choose a normal Space Marine chapter, you'd do Death Guard, right, Marky? Or not Death Guard, Death Watch.
Yeah. I'm so more to Tom's, he likes the style of the White Scars. I like the style of the Death Watch. There's no real chapter that kind of sings true to me. I chose Salamanders back in the day because I was like, oh, dragons are sick. These guys have flamers. I wasn't.
They have a unit called Fire Drake.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they were just cool. Green wasn't my favorite color back then. For some reason, it's my favorite color now. I don't know why or when that changed.
You like wiener.
Yep. The old green weenie. That you got to learn to love it.
Wow.
And even now, don't get me wrong, I like Salamanders, but more from the nostalgic aspect of that's where I started. Not so much now.
You like Salamanders the same reason I like White Scars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm more of the on the Death Watch aspect of it.
Cool.
I'd say my chapter, Space Marine.
Yeah. What's your chapter?
It has been through many cycles, so ask me in another 2 years, it'll probably be different again.
The Flesh Tears?
But no. I used to like them until they betrayed me. Flesh Tears, because Flesh Tears were all about being second founding.
Yeah.
And then now they have Primarchs. And the main dude who ran the Flesh Tears
became a Primarch.
is a fucking bitch because he was like, you are not one of the brothers. And then now he's like, I'm now one of them. I was like, you a fucking liar. That's what you are.
You a hypocrite.
You a fucking hypocrite. I don't like you no more. They were my favorite. The main dude had Chain Fists, which is also my favorite.
It's the one guy on the block that's like, I fucking can't stand Dodge Vipers. Those are a dumb car. And then somebody gives him a free Dodge Viper, and he's like, I love Dodge Vipers. They're my favorite.
Yeah,
dude,
exactly.
That's always been my dream car.
Dude, that's what pissed me off. So, dude, Flesh Tears, I was all about them, but fuck them. No. Now I'm Carcharodon. If we were doing a role-playing game where we're all Death Watch,
you would choose
I would be a
Carcharodon?
Carcharodon.
That's dope.
Hands down. Because you know what I would say all the time?
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh.
They don't fucking talk. They just show up and go, and then they, they sniff.
I was waiting for Tom to quote something out of the Street Shark commercial that Vin Diesel did for Toy Fair back in the day.
Jossum. Also, I mean, you're not wrong. I wouldn't mind making those fucking remarks time for a slammoo. But no, Carcharodon's dude all the way. They got their main dude, their chapter master is Tiberius the Red Wake.
Yeah, it's pretty
fucking sick, dude.
Yeah.
He's as big as Vulcan.
Yeah, that is a fucking badass
dude.
name.
He's so dope. His armor is fucking modded. It's a combination of Dreadnought and Terminator armor because he don't fit.
Motherfucker too big.
Yeah, instead of chain fists, this fool got chain palms. Tiberius the Red Wake.
Like when you chain fists on your chain fist.
Yeah. Let me just grab you real quick. Oop, no, you in pieces. Yeah, Carcharodon's all the way.
If I was to choose a chapter for my Death Watch, I mean, I guess I would choose the Salamanders. But that's more, again, because of the nostalgia aspect of it. But I don't know. No chapter just sings to me this is my chapter. This is the one I like.
Nothing really jumps out to you?
No, just Salamanders from the nostalgia aspect. Otherwise, it's just Death Watch. There's no other chapter that's I fucking hate Xenos, and I specialize in killing Xenos. It's just yeah,
there is.
Who's that?
The fucking Minotaurs, bro.
No, they specialize in fighting other Space Marines.
Other Space Marines. Yeah.
Oh, That's dope too.
Yeah.
You don't like Space Marines. So if it wasn't Carcardons, it'd be Minotaurs. Simply because they're like Spartan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's sick as fuck. Like
they are
have the big round shields.
Yeah,
like,
they are fucking sick.
Yeah. Minotaurs are dope as shit. What about Red Scorpions? I thought they were. Are they super like anti anything that's not human?
Who was that again?
Red Scorpions?
The Red Scorpions?
Yeah. I can't remember what their thing
I
is.
do not recall.
I'm pretty sure they're very like only humanity. Like that's their whole thing is like only humanity, like for the Emperor. Like,
well, the thing is with the Death Watches is they're not so much for humanity; they're just against Xenos.
Well, you know who you'd really be, right? If you don't like Tyranids so much because you don't like Xenos.
Who that?
Ultramarines.
I do like Tyrannic War Veterans.
If I had to pick a Space Marine chapter for you, you'd be an Ultramarine.
You think so?
Hands down.
I just don't like the whole Roman aspect.
I mean, it's very light though. It's only on their home world, like,
and they're corny, dude.
Yeah,
like,
they are, but so are you.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree. They're very much by the book, where the Death Watch are not. And
I just think of everything that you're like, man, fuck Xenos, like, but them Orcs boys are funny. Or you're like Tyranids, fuck, your like favorite people to fight is fucking Orcs and Tyranids. Yeah. And like, who do the Ultramarines always fight?
That's
Orcs
just,
Tyranids.
That's just because of GW.
Yeah, I know.
That's just propaganda.
Yeah,
it's GW propaganda.
Family.
Yeah, but I mean, they fight against everything that I like. Like they don't like. I mean, I'm not really a big Necron fan. I guess that. Yeah. But like, I mean, I like the idea of Genestealer cult. I like the idea of Tyranids. I like the idea of Orcs. And what is the opposite of that?
Ultramarines.
Is the Death Watch.
Yeah, but I mean, specifically Ultramarines.
It's some.
Or Grey Knights.
No.
I thought you would like the Grey Knights.
No, I don't like the Grey Knights. I'm not a... I don't know, something about them being like super special psychers. Like I never really liked psychic stuff.
If they weren't psychers, I'd be all about them.
Yeah.
Like if they weren't the one thing that they are, I'd like them.
Yeah, I'm not a big psyker fan.
Yeah, no.
I really like their sculpts. I really like their armor.
Yeah, that's what I like about them. It's like
I only like their Terminators.
The Terminators are pretty fucking dope. I love the Dread Knight. I don't give a fuck what anybody else says. The fucking baby carrier. Like,
yeah, I mean, I got nothing.
I fucking love that thing.
I got nothing against it.
Like, to me, that's what you would have if you were a fucking Space Marine and being like, no, I want something bigger. Not this other, like, APU thing that they have for the
Chuck just made a bunch of them.
Yeah, weird name.
God damn it, I always forget their name. It's the Eradicator. I think I have one on the shelf.
Yeah, you do.
What are you talking about?
The Primaris, like,
baby carrier thing.
The Primaris APU. The Dreadnought, that's not a Dreadnought.
It's not Infiltrator, that's the...
Invictus.
There you go. Yeah, the Invictus.
Yeah.
Because they got the Infiltrators, they got the Incursor, they got the Invictus. It's they got all the shit.
Of all the Primarchs, I like Vulcan the most, just because he's fucking dope. Like, he's just like, I'm big, you're small, but I like you. It'll be fine. But you're fucking squashed. You know, like, everything about him is just like, he's so nice, but Jesus, you know, like.
Gentle Giant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's the fucking Jolly Green Giant of Space Marines. Like, and too, like they have the red eyes, like their whole thing.
Yeah,
like,
that definitely is cool.
Yeah, like all the pictures of Vulcan, you're like, God damn, dude.
Like, that dude's dope.
Yeah, you're like, you sure that ain't the Emperor? You know what I mean? Like,
I like that. I like that.
Sure that
is true. The one thing that I've always had a very strong interest in is blacksmithing. And I think that's also what pulled me towards the Salamanders, is like they're known for making like artificer weapons and armor. And like all of them are blacksmiths or something or other. But that's always something that I've had an interest in, is like blacksmithing.
Yeah. Out of all of the Primarchs, like Angron is dope as shit.
Yeah,
I love Angron. Fulgrim has this weird thing for me. Like I just want to know more. Like Fulgrim, I'm always like, I want to know more about him. Like he just reminds me of like, he's so not what all the other Primarchs are. Like he is just as much different of an idea of a Primarch as like a Thunder Warrior is to a Space Marine. You know what I mean? Like
that was the word bearers.
Fulgrim is Emperor's Children.
Emperor's Children.
Oh, okay.
The purple.
Lorgar is word bearers.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, like he's so different. Like there's something about him that just makes him very interesting. Like I'm always wanting to learn more about Fulgrim.
He's not the one that painted the shit, right?
That's Fulgrim.
Yeah,
Fulgrim did that.
Fulgrim has the sword that possessed him.
Yeah.
You know. But I'd say
what makes him different than the other ones? Because I don't really know too much about him. Because he's this like
tiny, skinny, little long-haired dude. Like he looks like an Eldari, but he's a fucking Primarch. Like what the fuck? Like he's this skinny little pretty boy.
He's the prettiest of them.
Yeah,
I thought Sanguinius was.
Sanguinius has the like angelic pretty.
Look. Yeah.
And Fulgrim has the like
the beautiful pretty
vanity.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Like when you look at pictures of like dudes that are like in lingerie, like that's Fulgrim. You know what I mean? Like that's and
especially
I don't know what it is.
now,
right? And I don't know what it is, but it's interesting. It's just so different. You know what I mean? Like
those ones where you're looking for an apple. You're just like,
how did I get here? I'd say probably like Khan out of all of the Primarchs I like identify with the most, just simply for the fact that like he's just straight up like a Mongolian. And that to me is dope. Like he's just like, nomadic lifestyle. Like some of the books that I've read, because like, you know, the White Scars were like the first ones to really kind of fight the Tau.
Yeah.
In some of the books that I've read, they're just like, one of their like cons is just like sitting on a pillow, like reading something next to a fire, eating meat. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Fucking cool.
Like, yeah. Like I'm just like, that's sick. Like,
yeah, I like the style of the White Scars, but I'm not, for some reason, I'm not like what are they based off? Like Mongolians?
Yeah.
Mongolian, yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, like I don't know much about them. I'm not a big history guy, and I don't know. I know they were like they were like Vikings, right?
Yeah,
they
basically.
like just pillaged all over.
They were like the Asian version of Vikings.
Yeah. I'm not a big Vikings guy, and I don't know.
I'm not
like,
a big white Vikings guy because I fucking hate white people right now.
Damn, tell him.
I just hate the like Sweetaboo. Like I hate anybody that's like an American that's like, oh, I'm fucking Viking. I'm like, no, you're not. You're fucking like from Nebraska.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, you're born in Nebraska. Calm down. Like
I've seen a lot.
You know, it's like those dudes that are like, I'm fucking Mexican. I'm like, you were from San Diego. Like I know that's close, but it's not that.
It's
like,
pretty close, but it's not close enough.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah. Like, so, bro, you live in Seattle. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the shit. It's like, oh, Cinco de Mayo. I'm like, you were literally born in Arizona. Like,
yeah,
you know, like that shit. Like,
it bothers
me. Yeah. So like Sweetaboos, dude. Like,
yeah, I've seen a couple of those like little short videos of like the dudes that dress up like Vikings and they like do like the war paint and shit. And
oh god,
I'm just like, I mean, like most things, I'm a do you kind of guy. Like,
do you feel the Nordic winds flowing in your veins, brother? No, I don't at all. Like, I don't at all, and I don't like you. Just because I have facial hair doesn't mean we're the same.
Hold on, I'm pretty sure if you feel that, you need to go to the doctor. That doesn't sound normal.
Like, dude, I don't. Just because I have facial hair, I'm not you, and I don't like you. Like,
yeah.
Oh, you have a hammer on your neck? Is that Mjolnir? Cool. Like, you know.
I like that. Mew Mew. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's Mew Mew.
Oh, man, you got the Monopoly? Like Monopoly? That's dope, dude.
As soon as what's her face? The actress from Two Broke Girls. Yeah, Two Broke Girls and fucking whatever the first Thor movie was like.
Her name's Kat Dennings. You treat her like she's a prize, all right?
As soon as she called fucking Thor's hammer Mew Mew, I was like, it's stuck.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. No, that's
I could see it because like just thinking about it, like from my background, seeing a dude that is completely Americanized that dresses up or acts like a Mayan or an Aztec.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But then he goes back and puts on his polo shirt and jorts. And you're just like, dude.
Yeah, it's the same shit with like every bro in the fucking late 90s who gets a tribal tattoo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you're not that.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Yeah. But like, I don't like Space Wolves because it's guided my fucking entry into Warhammer. I don't like Space Wolves because I don't want everybody who looks at me to go, oh, you like Space Wolves? Like, no, I don't. I don't at all. I play Tau. That's how, like, that's why I went to Tau in the first place. Like,
to blow your face off the table.
Because now it's really bad because now I'm totally in that because they're like, oh, what do you play? Imperial Knights? Of course you do, you British fuck. And I'm like, but at least I am. Like, at least I'm actually born there, you know? Like,
Yeah, fair.
it's not like my fucking second cousin's grandfather's second removed is British.
Visited there once.
Yeah, fucking stop by for tea. Like, you know?
Is that why I play bugs? Because I'm just a creeper? Deep down inside, I'm just filled with a bunch of horrible insects.
Dude. I don't know why I play Deathwatch, because I have a deep hatred for everything, I guess. I don't know.
Aliens. Aliens.
Apparently, dude.
I mean, like, I have several armies that I enjoy and play because I have the opposite. So you have a lot of like for some of the Xeno species, so it makes sense. You buy and collect the opposing army as well.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Epitome of the opposing army.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Plus, the idea of Deathwatch is the best of the best. And if you really go back, it's technically Gray Shields, which is really nice, which is 30K. That's probably what I would say. If you like a 30K army,
it'd be Gray Shields.
Yeah,
I could see that.
The second Legion.
Yeah, weren't a lot of Gray Shields indoctrinated into the Gray Knights, though?
Yeah, but
Dark Angels.
That would split you. That would split you into whether or not you're a Gray Knight or you're Deathwatch, because the Gray Shields, Shields and Black Shields ended up in different places. But
not the Black Shields, just the Gray Shields. The Black Shields came out way later.
Yeah.
Gray Shields are 30K. Black Shields are Deathwatch specific.
So they've got two demarcations in the Horus Heresy books. They've got Black Shields and they have Gray Shields.
Well, Gray Shields became Black Shields is what it is, because Gray Shields didn't have a chapter or a legion to go back to. When they got indoctrinated into Deathwatch, and that was way after also, because Deathwatch weren't created until after the big fight with the orcs.
This is more one of those cases where, like, there's a term that they use in 30K.
Yeah, like, that also is a part of 40K.
That they also use in 40K, but they're completely different. Like, they used Black Shield, but it meant something. It had nothing to do with the Death Watch back in the Horus Heresy era. If I had the money, I would build Sons of Horus 100%. Horus is actually one of my favorite Primarchs.
White and purple.
Okay.
But when they became the Sons of Horus, they painted their armor.
It was like a light gray blue, right?
Yep. Oh, really?
Gray,
yeah, because I'm thinking Luna Wolves. Luna Wolves were white and purple.
Yeah.
Or no, white and green, right?
I think white
they
and
were
purple.
white and green. No, white and green were what's his faces?
Not the World Eaters.
No, the fucking Death Guard.
Oh yeah, they were like that off white, the eggshell white and green.
The Luna Wolves were purple and white.
They're white, white and dark purple.
Yep, there it is.
But I like the Luna Wolves. Two, I like the Sons of Horus. A lot of it comes back to the fact that I like Loken. Loken is one of my favorite characters. I actually also really like Horus, especially early, late Horus Heresy. Siege of Terra Horus is not Horus anymore, but Horus up until he's essentially killed and reincarnated and all that crap. I like him quite a bit. There's a lot about him as a character that's interesting. He's just one of those like great tactical minds. And obviously, being that I identified, I really like the stories where a hero falls and becomes something awful. Horus falls and becomes something awful. If I were to collect a modern Space Marine army, I would do White Scars. Definitely would be where I'd go. There's a couple of other potentials. If I were to start another Space Marine, or not Space Marine, Traitor Legion, I would probably do Red Corsairs.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about them.
The pirate guys, they're cool. I like the way that the White Scars look and play. Yeah. I like the idea of all the different bikes. I'm a huge cavalry dude. I have a tendency, especially the more I play Warhammer and other games, to really gravitate towards horses and bikes, all the fast attack stuff. I really like it.
Yeah,
it's how I play. I'm very, very aggressive, even if it's bad for me.
I don't really care for the whole bikes and whatnot. It's more the color scheme. The white with the red lightning bolts just looks fucking sick.
Yeah. For me, it's the motorcycles, just because when I was a child and first saw 40K, my buddy was putting together a pewter motorcycle.
Oh,
so that was like,
that's sick. Yeah.
Nostalgia really times in a lot to my 40K stuff. But you know who none of us have talked about? Lionel Johnson, get fucked. Nobody fucking likes you. God damn it, I'm so mad he's back.
I could be tempted to... actually, I think we talked about this the last couple episodes. I could be tempted to make a Dark Angels army, especially knowing a little bit more about their early history at this point.
Nope.
However, if I were not to do White Scars, I would do Ferrus Manus. That would be where I would go. But I wouldn't do
Iron Hands, right?
I wouldn't do Iron Hands. I would do Legion of the Damned.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
Legion of the Damned is sick as fuck.
Yeah.
They're actually the Legion of the Damned are actually the Firehawks.
There's a couple things that.
Oh, there's like a bunch. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's GW, of course there is. Open-ended.
Their
What?
air quotes. Their air quotes Primarch is Ferrus Manus. The Firehawks could be a successor chapter of the Iron Hands. We'll get into chapters and successor chapters and foundings and all of that as we get deeper
We
into
should have
Space
a
Marine
Legion of
lore
the
in the
Damned
future.
episode. I know there's not too much on them, but
Oh, we could make enough.
yeah, but we can definitely talk enough
Yeah.
because I've definitely
Speaking-
Even
heard.
just talking about the models themselves, along with the lore and how they were generated and created, is a really good read.
And tinfoil hat stuff, basically our own interpretation and thoughts on it would be pretty sick.
Every single person has a different
Yeah,
view on
right.
it.
And speaking of legions that could have their own episode, even though you'd think there isn't that much, what about that 2nd and 11th Legion? So
you mean the enter your name here?
Yeah. Yep.
The your name here legions?
Yeah. So and that's why they exist. Before we get into the lore part,
100%.
that they existed because back in 3rd edition, 4th edition, the whole idea was you made your own legion.
Yeah.
It was your entry to make your own thing.
Your second legion, you good boy. Your 13th legion, you bad boy.
11.
Or 11, sorry. What was the 13th?
Ultramarines.
Oh, yeah.
So the 2nd and 11th legions, referred to as the Forgotten and the Purged, the 2nd and 11th Primarchs and their legions are listed as having been deleted from the Imperial record. This formal censure from the official records is known as the Edict of Obliteration, or Dementio Memorare. We're going with that, which means condemnation of memory in High Gothic. Official imperial policy states that any records, icons, symbols, or monuments pertaining to any individual or organization will be deliberately destroyed. This is usually reserved for the imperial elite who have been declared excommunicado traitorous by the Emperor of Mankind before he was interned on the Golden Throne, the High Lords of Terra, or the Inquisition. So these are the people who end up being the subject of an edict of obliteration. In a galaxy-spanning empire that stresses fealty and loyalty to the Imperium and Emperor in return for advancement, acclaim, and spiritual salvation, this is one of the most severe punishments. Complete and utter erasure of all records of the 2nd and 11th Legions is considered by the Imperial historians to be the most successful edict of obliteration ever carried out in Imperial history. The Ragandan Genocides. A rare record accidentally survived into the copies of the Astra Militarum's Imperial Infantrymen's uplifting primer, even now in the 41st and 42nd millennium. This record revealed that the long-lost 2nd and 11th Legions were involved with the campaigns of the Ragandan Genocide during the Great Crusade and in the 860s. M30. However, in what capacity remains unknown. Ragandan Xenocides. I think I said genocide.
Yeah, Xenocides.
The whole reason for that is to give you a starting point for your story.
Yep. And there actually is a little bit more lore, and by a little bit more lore, I mean a lot of bit more lore on the 2nd and 11 Legions, probably enough that they will get their own little episode. It'll probably be heavily tinfoil hatted because we'll talk a lot about what we think is going on, but there is some pretty cool bits. You know, there's a lot of writing that's happened.
They're female Primarchs.
Oh, yeah.
And Erda took them away.
Yeah, I had to have that conversation with someone the other day.
What's that?
Well, there's cases in the Horus Heresy where people where characters refer to legionnaires from the 2nd and the 11th Legions. And one of the other things we know, Tom mentioned this earlier, some of them became Grey Shields and others were just folded into other legions. One of the potential theories behind the reasons that the Ultramarine Legion was so big was that they swallowed the entire 11th Legion.
Huh.
All the Astartes were just moved over. The other reason, in theory, is because they never got involved in any fights and didn't lose anybody. Because they were too busy in their own corner of the galaxy making their empire.
Were those two Primarchs, were they scattered and lost, essentially? And then there's no information on them?
And they were discovered. So as we read down the list of when the Primarchs were discovered and in which order they were discovered, the 2nd and 11th are in there. The 2nd was discovered 3rd, and the 11th was discovered 2nd from last. However, because they've been erased from Imperial record, we don't know what planets they came from and we don't know what battles they were involved in. other than by their exclusion. It's the idea of tracking something in history by its absence. That's the only way that you can track the 2nd and 11th Legion. From a game mechanics perspective, the reason it was done was so that you had a way to insert your own story, as Tom just mentioned. But
right.
Now that the kind of like 2nd or 3rd era of lore has kind of hit, and there's a lot of intellectual property protection and stuff going on, and they're starting to fill stuff out, that's not the case anymore. They've locked them down, which works because we have successor chapters, and successor chapters have been established for a while. So
yeah, and you can always make your own successor chapter
with an unknown founding.
Yeah, there's no close end to that.
Yeah. And you can pick a famous founding, or you can pick a more recent founding. And with the Primaris, there's obviously stuff you can do.
Yeah,
and with
the whole other one.
Yeah. And with the Primaris too, there are Gray Shield Primaris. And Gray Shield is kind of like a blanket term that's used for Astartes that are created that do not have a legion or a chapter. They're just blank. They don't know where their gene seed comes from, or they're created from one of the blank gene seeds. We don't know. And they don't really have a place until they're put with people,
where they'll basically be given the Primarchs gene seed, right? Of that chapter that they go to?
No, because a lot of the Gray Shields that were folded into other legions were the loyalist forces from the traitor legions that survived the Istvan 5 massacre.
Gotcha.
That fled back to the Imperium, and then since they couldn't be, we're sorry, you can't be a loyalist word bearer or world eater.
Right.
Strip your armor, and that's where it comes from. You strip your armor back to whatever base color it is, gray, steel, and then you're folded into another army. Yeah. And when you're folded into that other army, you repaint your armor.
Or you're put into the Primaris pool.
Yeah.
Because that's how some of the Primaris are from the heresy. They were, cocooned back then. They were chosen.
Or you're put into the potentially the Grey Knights, or I can't remember what the organization was called, but the organization that becomes the Death Watch, because there was a precursor to the Death Watch. So we discussed the Primarchs in the order they were discovered, but that doesn't necessarily give a lot of information about the Primarch. Just before we end the episode here, we're going to go over the Primarchs in order and talk about where their allegiance lies and what we know about their current status. So first up is the Lion, Lionel Johnson from the Dark Angels, 1st Legion. He's loyalist. The Legion's alliance is loyal. And his current status was he was missing and considered to be in status aboard the Rock, the Dark Angels Fortress Monastery, but Stasis. He's back. Stasis, yes, not status. Thank you. But he is back. The 2nd Legion, everything is unknown. The 3rd Legion is the Emperor's Children. Their Primarch is Fulgrim. They are traitor. Fulgrim's body is possessed for a time by a greater demon of Slaanesh, who is once contained within the Chaos Sword that Fulgrim found on the world of Laerion. Fulgrim regained control of his body and eventually ascended to become the Demon Prince of Slaanesh, although the lore kind of suggests that the actual Fulgrim is just trapped inside and the Demon Prince is not actually Fulgrim. It goes back and forth. 4th Legion is Iron Warriors. Their Primarch is Perturabo. They are a traitor legion, and Perturabo is a Demon Prince of Chaos Undivided, so he doesn't have an allegiance. 5th Legion is Jakatai Khan, who leads the White Scars. They are loyalists. Jakatai Khan disappeared into the Webway in pursuit of Drukhari raiders. I think the Khan is probably the next. I thought the Khan was the Primarch we were getting back. I was really surprised that we got the Lion, because the Khan is the one that, he just blipped out. He didn't die. Nobody thinks he's dead. He just went off on a mission and hasn't come back yet. And I mean, it's been 9,000 years, but still.
That could be a week in the warp.
Who it needs to be is fucking Vulcan.
Yeah, Vulcan's parts would have to be reassembled. Would have to come back to each other. So 6th Legion is Space Wolves. Their Primarch is Leman Russ. They are loyalist. Leman Russ disappeared into the Eye of Terror. 7th Legion, Imperial Fists. Their Primarch is Rogel Dorn. They are loyalist. Rogel Dorn was believed to be slain during the First Black Crusade. Skeletal remains preserved aboard the Phalanx exist in several different chapels. So he is assumed to be dead, but there's no definitive proof.
So dead with remains, but is a perpetual?
They're all perpetuals, or they all should have been perpetuals. The only one who's ever discussed as actually doing perpetual shit, though, is Vulcan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Primarchs were built to be fake perpetuals. So in theory, they could all come back. And we don't really know. We talked about this a little bit last episode. We don't really know what circumstances lead to a perpetual dying. We know that some perpetuals can choose to not come back.
Right.
Erda chose not to be reincarnated. John Grammaticus chose to not be reincarnated. So there's some level of my choice matters. So that could be what happens. It could be that old D&D rules, when you fight a lich, you have to find their phylactery and destroy their phylactery. And if you do destroy their phylactery, they don't come back. But if you can't find it, they'll come back. So it could be like that. You know that, right? Liches write a scroll, and that's what makes them a lich. And if you can find where they store the scroll on their body and destroy the skull, they won't regenerate. But if you don't, they'll regenerate over time.
Did not know that. It's like, what's his name from Harry Potter?
Yes. Draca liches are the same way. That's old D&D lore.
I thought a phylactery was like a dick.
Phylactery is a prayer box usually worn on the head.
Fallacy. That's what. Phallus.
Phallic,
Is what
yeah.
I was thinking. Phallic.
Phallic-y.
Phallic-y. That's what I thought it was. You got to destroy his dick.
A phylactery is a prayer. That's the origin of the word, is a prayer box.
Huh.
The 8th Legion Night Lords are run by Conrad Cruz. They are a traitor legion, also known as the Night Haunter. He is dead. He was assassinated by a Kalitas Temple assassin named Mashin, and he chose to be assassinated, which I don't understand. He's like, it will be so much more devastating if you assassinate me. It will scare everybody. Like, what? What the fuck are you talking about, you fucking weirdo? That's how I feel anyway. 9th Legion Blood Angels. Their Primarch was Sanguinius. They are loyal. Sanguinius is dead. He was slain by Horus at the climax of the Horus Heresy. His death imprinted a psychic scar on the Blood Angels Legion. They now carry in their genetic memory, which is thought to be the cause of the affliction known as the Black Rage. And I believe, as you had mentioned, Marky, or as you theorized, it is in the gene seed from Sanguinius Marines. The Marines that were from Terra did not suffer from it.
Right.
They suffer from something similar, like the overwhelming grief or something. It's got a different name, but it's essentially like they upset, not they raging.
Angry.
They crazy. They cray.
Yeah. The 10th Legion Iron Hands is run by Ferrus Manus. They are loyal. Ferrus Manus was killed by being beheaded on the field by Fulgrim. He was actually killed with the sword so Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim made weapons for each other, and they've dueled with their weapons. And I don't know if I'm recalling this correctly, but I think Fulgrim used the weapon that Ferrus made for him to kill him, but I'm not sure.
No, he used the sword.
Did he use the demon sword?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Okay.
That's when he realized that he was being possessed.
Oh,
because he wanted to stop, and the sword was like, no.
That's right. That's right. Good memory.
Like I said, Fulgrim fascinates me.
I haven't read those first 5 books of the Horus Heresy in so long. I feel like I should reread them at some point. So the 11th Legion is unknown. The 12th Legion, World Eaters, formerly known as the Warhounds. Their Primarch is Angron. They are a traitor legion. Angron is currently a demon prince of Khorne, banished back to the warp during the First War of Armageddon, although he back, baby. The Ultramarines, or the 13th Legion, are led by Reboot Gilliman. They are loyalists. He was mortally wounded by Fulgrim at the Battle of Thalessa after the Horus Heresy, and he was kept in status in the Stasis, thank you, in the Temple of Corrections on the world of Macraig. There were unconfirmed rumors for many standard centuries that he was slowly healing. Gilliman was revived again after the fall of Cadia during the 13th Black Crusade.
After clapping some knife-ear cheeks.
Yep. Currently, Gilliman serves once more as the Imperial Legion and Lord Commander of the Imperium. He's essentially Emperor in action. Jesus, dude.
My bad, double tab.
The 14th Legion, known as the Death Guard, at one point known as the Dusk Raiders, is led by Mortarion. They are a traitor legion, and Mortarion is a demon prince of Nurgle. Angron, by the way, is the demon prince of Khorne. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah, you said that.
Okay. This is when my reading of Roman numerals gets bad. The 15th Legion, the Thousand Sons, their Primarch is Magnus the Red. They are Traitor Legion. Magnus the Red is a demon prince of Tzeentch. The 16th Legion, the Luna Wolves, the Sons of Horus, once known as the Luna Wolves. Their Primarch was Horus. They are Traitor Legion. They are now the Black Legion. Horus is dead, utterly destroyed, soul extinguished by the Emperor during the last moments of the Siege of Terra. Ezekiel Abaddon later proclaimed himself Horus' successor as the mortal leader of the forces of chaos by destroying Horus' corpse and claiming the title War Master of Chaos during the Legion Wars. And that's one of the weird things. They have this, Horus is dead. He was utterly destroyed by the Emperor. But later on, Abaddon destroyed his body during the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait a minute. Was he completely destroyed by the Emperor, or was he completely destroyed by Abaddon? We talked about this during, I think, the Second Unification Wars, or maybe the Spotlight Terra. We talked about it very recently. Horus's soul was completely destroyed to the point that he would never be able to heal and rejoin his body. But his body was basically left as like this empty husk, which caused shenanigans.
So I says to him, wrecked him, damn near killed him.
The 17th Legion, the Imperial Heralds, renamed the Word Bearers. Their Primarch is Logar. They are a traitor legion. Logar is a demon prince of chaos undivided in contemplation and self-imposed isolation since the end of the heresy.
The Word Bearers are the true renegades.
Yeah, they started everything.
Yeah, they're not even chaos. They're just renegades.
Yeah, they were the first, like, followers of Undivided. They're now chaos, but the Word Bearers are interesting. The Word Bearers were my favorite for a long time. And I'm always kind of irritated that they're hated on Mimi wise now. I don't understand why people hate them.
Great like lore lines about them where like they fucked up. I can't remember what planet it was, but they basically caused like a massacre. And so the fucking Emperor showed up and was like, kneel. And all of them like were fighting it. The whole legion was like, fuck you, and like forced to kneel before the Emperor. I was like, that's fucking sick. Like
a lot of stuff happens with the Thousand Sons fucking up and the Word Bearers fucking up. So the Thousand Sons fuck up because they have good intentions and then they end up fucking up really bad. The Word Bearers very, very quickly realize the Word Bearers were kind of designed to be propagandists, and like they were the Imperial Heralds. So they're the ones that first see the Emperor as a god. They're the ones who first worship the Emperor as a god. The Emperor outlaws their worship, and they have a problem with it, and they find something else to worship. And the something else they find to worship are the Chaos Gods. But they don't worship the Chaos Gods as four individual entities. They worship them as one entity for a long time. And like, we'll get into it. Future episode territory. Cool. Yeah. So the 18th Legion Salamanders, their Primarch is Vulcan. He is a loyalist. He disappeared. His location is currently unknown. A big theory there is that like his hand is in one place, his head is in another place. And like basically because Vulcan wasn't disintegrated to atoms, he was like dismembered and the pieces are far enough away from each other. He can't perpetualize back together.
Yeah. And if he did, they're because the reason why they don't is because they're scared he's going to go crazy.
Yeah. They don't want, there's a whole, like, don't let those parts get back together.
Yeah. Because he'll kill everything.
The 19th Legion Raven Guard their Primarch is Corvus Corax. They are loyalist. Corax disappeared, last seen heading for the Eye of Terror, known to have become mutated by long warp exposure and now seeking to slay the demonic Primarchs in the Immaterium. His first target being Logar. Lastly, we have the 20th Legion, the Alpha Legion. Their Primarchs are the twins Alfarius and Omegon. They are a traitor legion. Alfarius is dead, slain by Rogel Dorn during the Battle of Pluto. Omegon may be dead, slain by Reboot Gilliman after the heresy. Both twins sided with Horus and were declared traitor by the Imperium. However, they considered themselves to be opposed to chaos, and their actions may simply be one of more subterfuge. So the Alpha Legion is largely considered to be and played as chaos, but there's a lot of stuff in the Alpha Legion lore, especially the early Alpha Legion lore, that suggests the Alpha Legion had special direction from the Emperor. Like, no one knows where their planet is. Nobody knows where they came from. Nobody really knows which twin their gene seed comes from. And they were doing a bunch of shit that was like CIA-ish. And that's how the Emperor used them. He used them as kind of the intelligence branch of the legions. And because of that, there's a lot of, are they actually traitors or are they just in some long con? Do they have some other action? That they're interesting. That they would be fun to dip into too.
I do love their color scheme. Maybe that would be my 30k army.
What are they?
Between they're like I want to say it's like an aqua color.
Shockingly enough, I've actually
aqua
never
and
heard
green.
of them.
The Alpha Legion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard of the Alpha Legion, but never twin Primarchs.
Yeah. They had twin Primarchs.
One was never heard of that. That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that was them right there.
The Alpha Legion. They're the ones that have like the dragon scale armor.
Yeah.
They're always like half changing, right? Like, don't they do that? Like, they have a lot of models where it's like it's a salamander, but then he's changing into an Alpha Legion.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. So if you look at the choose your character,
that's funny.
Shot that I have up, the 10th you see the 20th Legion. There's the shorter guy, and then there's a taller guy behind him.
Oh, okay.
So Omegon is the taller of the two. Alfarius was shorter. And that's the whole thing where
because I've heard Alfarius, but I've never heard Omegon.
And if you ever heard the joke, I am Alfarius, so that comes from the fact that Alfarius may have been slain, or one of the other Legion heirs may have been posing as Alfarius, because Alfarius was the shortest of all the Primarchs, and he was short enough that he could pass as a normal Space Marine.
Oh, okay.
So was Alfarius actually killed, or not, or was he? Or not, and the Alpha Legion is crazy, and we'll definitely.
And they're all based off like Spec Ops stuff, right? Like they're all like super under the table types missions.
They're the Splinter Cell, army.
I do love their color scheme.
We will dip into the 18 legions first, after we touch on Space Marine core lore, before we get into some of the more famous chapters. So if there is a legion that you guys are super interested in hearing more about, or that you want us to deep dive about, don't worry, they will at some point be covered. But that wraps it up for our coverage on the Emperor and his Primarch Project. We will be taking a deeper dive into the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy over the next couple of episodes. Plus, we have an Under the Realms of Madness episode focused on Nagash and his Bodhi boys coming up as well. You want to get into contact with us about the show, or ask us about some bit of lore you feel we missed, or maybe just share your short stories, homebrew lore, and spooky dookies? Reach us by email at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com.
You can also reach us through our community on Discord. There we chat about the 40k hobby, lore, tactics, talk about a little bit of Age of Sigmar, fantasy battle, creative writing definitely, video games, role-playing, and much more. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or underthehiveofmadness.com. Like us and give us a review wherever you get your podcast fix. Our home is on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple, Google, Audible, Stitcher, and many more. We'd appreciate it.
You can also support us directly through Patreon at www.patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. Patreon members get access to video podcasts with minimal editing, so you can see our beautiful faces and follow along with what we're looking at on screen. Plus, you get to hear our bloopers that get edited out in real time, so you can hear me stumble over basic kindergarten level words.
You almost stumbled over that.
I did. All Patreon levels also get access to our quarterly painting contest. Plus, we have perks at higher levels, so go on over and check that out. Never has there been a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Wait a second. This isn't the right ad read. Sorry about that. Need your bike, quad, ice skimmer, or hive rig fixed? Come on down to the Balter Brain and take a load off while their mechanics crack open your chassis. Pull up a chair at the home of Brass Barrel Distillery and slug down a shot of Devil's Comet Amasec, or grab a bottle of Feral Rager Fungi Beer. Working hard to be whatever the Arbites have always warned you about, all while shattering whatever's left of the piece. We are 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio. Reminding all of you Chemrats, hive mice, and some ghoulies to keep those dials fixed right here, same ratty frequency, for a dose of the same ratty-ass attitude.
Remember to come back next time and listen to more great content.
Run.
There's nothing worse then getting stabbed in the face with a soldering iron, then getting eviscerated by a four-armed emperor.
Goodbye, motherfucker!
I don't even know what that's from.
I have no idea.
What is